it's like the only things I'm really going to be using it for is for the backing click tracks, stuff with the mixer I have now. That it's like I can do all the talk backs and stuff through there. Like I'm just like this year, my Mackie mixer that I have. I mean, look at that beautiful little box. I mean,
Yeah, dude.
it's got so many like channels. I'm about to fill every one of them.
Yeah.
It's like we're going to mic up things that don't even need to be mic'd up.
Yeah. Double mic the snare drum, top and bottom.
Or I've seen in recording studios, like I can't. It's like I can't tell if they're being funny.
Yeah,
but
right.
They have like 5 mics around the guitar amp, and I'm like, dude, it's just a normal. It's a nothing special Fender.
You're gonna replace all the sounds in post production anyway. Like, what's the point?
or I saw somebody because I've been trying to get a little bit better at the recording aspect, just enough to like I don't want to get. I'm gonna go to somebody to like do the professional recordings and stuff, but just for like getting demos and stuff. But I was like, hey, if we can make this demo sound a little fun and a little whatever. But seeing all the different triggers that you can have for like snares and stuff, and then you realize, oh my god, like you can make a absolute dirt cheap kit sound pretty good.
Yeah, that's the thing anymore, man. Like I'm in the market to buy a new kit, and the price point that I'm looking at is like the $2,000 range, and I mean maybe a little higher, but like I want something that is like top of the line, but not necessarily custom top of the line.
Yeah.
And so there's 2 drum sets at Music and Arts where I teach right now.
Which go ahead and what's the Nico's music? Nico Music?
NicoLembomusic.com.
NicoMusicLembo.com. Make sure.
NicoLembomusic.com.
Yeah, dude. If you guys are looking to learn how to play drums like a freaking like God of Thunder, this is your guy right here. So make sure you get on that before spots fill up.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the
shameless plug for my boy.
Out. Yeah,
dude. And, I mean, but like a kit like that, I mean, that's one that you can like when you take that somewhere, and like especially the work that you do. Like I mean, you started working with our boy Brad. We did a podcast with him in his studio. Like that's one of those kits. Like he's like, yeah, no, I'll break down my monster kit for something that nice and get it mic'd up like that. Or if you go to the other studios and stuff, like when you walk in with that, and people who know, will know.
Yeah. And I mean, Brad's stuff is great. You know, I went and did a couple of drum cover videos a couple weeks ago with him, and I didn't particularly care for the way that it sounded on my end. So I'm gonna go back in and redo it probably this month at some point. But, it's never good enough.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is. But there were, like I said before about, especially in the studio and any kind of studio, in any kind of recording situation, like I want to give the artist one full usable take.
Yeah.
And a lot of what happens everything really that happens after I'm done recording a song is not up to me unless it's our thing.
Yeah.
If it's mine, if it's something that I have a hand in writing, then
it's like I want it to sound exactly how I want it.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like it's in my head.
And the thing is too is that like with these videos, there wasn't a single ending that I really nailed.
Yeah.
It was like one of them sound okay and it's okay, but like, is anybody else going to notice? Maybe not, but I will. And it's going to drive me nuts.
Yeah, I mean I've seen plenty of times with like drummers.
Hang on a second. What was calling me?
The wifey?
Yes. Excuse me. Sorry, this is so unprofessional.
Oh, that's okay.
Hi, sweetheart. I just wanted to call and let you and remind you that I was over here with Jared doing his podcast right now. But I called you earlier just to remind you that I was doing this. Okay. Yeah, probably around like 8:39. Yep. I will. Love you too.
Love you too.
Bye.
Love you, Melissa.
She's probably a good thing that I got back to work today.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, goodness, man. It's like a lot of people, it's like, Happy New Year's, by the way.
Thank you. You too. You too.
Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, everything in between, because all the holidays. Is that better, Josh?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. I had to move my mic a little bit.
Gotcha.
But, yeah, it's just like, dude, I mean, I'm one of those people that also just, it's so hard for me to relax and like actually like take a day off because I'm like, I could be doing so much things. I could be doing this. I could be doing that. And then like after Christmas to New Year's, it's that weird, like, is this place open? Or like, reaching out to venues and trying to get stuff booked, and it's like just getting a ton of out of office emails.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, all right. And so this week it's like, all right, follow back up with everybody. Just want to touch base again and try to fill out the schedule and like make it as,
Oh yeah, man, I did that today. With all of my students all of my in-home students.
Yeah.
The kids that I teach at the store. It's not really my job to do that. That's the reason why I teach at a store, is for them to deal with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's like I will provide the service of teaching.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you deal with all the stuff I don't want to deal with. That's why I work here.
Yeah.
But yeah, today I was basically just going through everybody and making sure that everybody was ready to go on their days and getting everybody back into the swing of things.
Yeah, dude.
You know,
I mean, because it's just like it's a weird kind of cadence of like the year. Because I mean, in my background with before going full-time music in the business world,
yeah,
it's like there's Q1, 2, 3, and 4, the quarterly stuff, like, and I mean it all comes from the analytics and all the nerds in the accounting department and stuff saying, oh, here's our statistics and all this and stuff.
Right.
God bless the nerds and the geeks that like put all that stuff together, because then the sales, like the meathead salespeople like me, would know our head from our ass.
Yep.
So I
everyone's got a role to play.
exactly.
It's like being in a band.
Oh God, bro. But did you play New Year's or did?
Yeah.
Where'd you play at? If you don't mind me asking.
No, not at all. I played a wedding at the.
A wedding on New Year's?
Yeah, it's fairly common.
I mean, I mean, like, sounds kind of badass. I'm not like, but I'm like, I wouldn't have thought of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense in a way because
I mean,
a lot of your family's probably still in town from Christmas.
and I'm sure the the venues are like, if we're not booked, I mean,
Yeah, and they will give you discounts at certain parts of the year too, like now.
yeah,
January and February are usually pretty dead for pretty much anything.
yeah,
Like this is where we go into our fight or flight mode with work. I've seen so many people that are on the road with like major artists who are begging and pleading for work right now because it's just the time of year.
Oh yeah, and then I've like some musicians, they kind of said, like, hey, this is our slow season. And I mean, that's if you're like doing original touring and stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's all types of events and stuff out there, but if you're at the stage like I'm at, where it's like, hey, if you're not playing at, which we got to talk about the menu venues.
Yes.
Bro, you were the first person to ever say that to me, and I was like,
Well, I stole that from someone else.
I mean,
that's not mine.
that's music,
Yeah.
Someone, a recording engineer once told me, it's like the best, the most successful like recording artists are the ones who don't steal, but they're inspired
Yes.
by, it's like we're all inspired by other musicians that we've come across.
Well, yeah, and like especially when you get down into the technical aspects of actually playing music, it doesn't matter what instrument you're playing. There's only so many choices.
Yeah.
Like in Western music, anyway. For the 12-note scale, that's what you got from C to C. You got 12 notes, or A to A.
Yeah.
And there's nothing else that you can do besides.
At some point, it's like, all right, let's try this again.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Like for our stuff, like we're going into it not trying to necessarily like reinvent the wheel. We just want to make good music.
Yeah, stuff that's not overly clever, but stuff that's just like, oh, the masses will enjoy that hook, and they'll enjoy that like kind of like that the groove that's in there, but then something that's just got a little something so the musicians can go,
yeah.
I can smell what you're cooking there, so
yes, and like that's the kind of thing, like you want like being subtle about things. That's always been my approach to pretty much anything. When I was younger, I cared more about the way I dressed. Now that's just I dress for cost at this point. But like when I was in school, I had I was playing concerts with the jazz band all the time. We had to wear suits, so I had 3 or 4 different suits and 5 or 6 different shirts and tie combinations and vests and blah blah blah. And you wear your black suit as you do on the gig, and then your shirt is a different color, and then your tie could be like real vibrant.
Yeah, that's like you're like, hey.
Yeah, but see, like that's your subtleness. It's still, you still notice it, but it's not out in your face.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I try to approach drums the same way. It's hard to kind of stick with that path when you see people ripping chops left and right on YouTube and things like that. But
yeah, but I mean, it's like for my New Year's gig, I was white suit. I felt like I was styling.
yes,
Like, and I had like white suit, black shirt, like, and a white tie to kind of accent it all. And I was like, oh
yeah, heck yeah.
I'm looking good,
How was your gig,
dude. I gotta brag.
Yeah.
I'm like, not to break my arm, patting my own back, but like we nailed this gig, and the place that we played at was High Hampton in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Like they handed me oh, would you like anything to drink and stuff? I was like, I'll just take a coffee, and then I was just like, pinky up.
Yeah, right.
This is the kind of people I'm around. I mean, dude. And then the best part about it, they were so gracious, so hospitable. Like it was amazing. Like I cannot say enough good things about that place. It was beautiful.
Awesome.
And they comped us a cabin. And when we looked up how much the cabin cost a night,
yeah,
like the whole band walked in there, and they were just like, oh my god! Like every room had its own bathroom.
Right.
They had like a master bedroom, had its own fireplace. Like
damn.
The main cabin, dude, the cabin was nicer than my house.
That's awesome.
Like, and they were just like, yeah, no one rented it, so if you guys wanted to, you guys can stay there. And I was like, thank you.
Heck yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
They fed us, and then like it was awesome. And then we played our asses off. Like we did really good. It took a little bit of time to get the people like there because they went from like this big 7-course dinner, and then we started playing about like 9:00.
Okay.
About like 10:15, they all kind of started coming down into the main like tavern bar area we were playing at. And dude, they were those kind of affluent, well-off people that love to party.
Yeah.
So it's like the best type of like crowd. And we definitely catered our sound because we knew our age range was, like the 35 and up crowd.
Right.
And it's like, like 35 to like, probably like the mid 60s. So we had a pretty wide range of like musical taste that you can imagine. So we played all the classic rock songs. We played a bunch of 90s classics, just all these things that, I guess you kind of call them like bar standards.
Yeah.
Places you go up, and then we threw in some extra like this is the one part that was really funny. So we played a lot of like those songs, and then we had it timed out to where about I'd say probably like 11:45, 11:50, right before the ball dropped and stuff. The general manager, he would come out, make a quick speech for all the members and everything like that, and then he turned it back over to us with 8 minutes. 8 minutes.
What are you supposed to do in that time?
Well, you know what we did? Is I did a little filler talking and like just like, hey, just want to say everyone looks great tonight. We're gonna do, just to give you a little like thank you so much. Did all the thank yous and try to get that out, and then we still had like 4 minutes.
Right.
And I was like, all right, let's do a sing along song everyone's gonna know.
Yeah.
And I looked at the band and was like, guys, it's time to play Country Roads. And this is, mountain town and stuff. Definitely, it's not, West Virginia or anything by it.
Yeah,
but
right.
everyone can sing Country Road.
Yeah.
Take me.
100%.
And so, but that song's only 3 minutes, like in 30 something seconds. Like it's not like that long.
Right.
And so we just kept running the chorus over and over again. We had the TV with the ball drop on and everything. So we're just sitting there jamming. And then like I was like, all right, we got 30 seconds.
Right.
Big finish. And dude, we nailed it.
Nice.
Nailed it. It was like, yeah. Everyone's cheering. I was like, all right, 10, 9. And got down. And then I swear to God, by 12:15, everyone was out of that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Everyone was gone.
Yeah. My wedding, we were done or my wedding gig that I had that night, we were done, well, technically by 12:30, but that was like the end time. But they were all done after the countdown.
Because
ready to go.
Yeah, dude. And I mean, it was just crazy. I mean, just the amount of alcohol like that was just like, and the thing was that it was all the members of that resort.
Right.
So it was a big members party. Everyone had like, their comps and everything coming in. There was just at one point I think I had like 4 champagne glasses. Like I was like, guys, I can't do this.
We weren't allowed to drink from the bar, but they did give us some champagne to toast with them.
Yeah. Like that, and people just kept like giving us stuff, and I'm just like, guys, I gotta stay professional. I can't do this. I just gotta like, thanks, and I'm just passing it off to people. But man, there was one dude that was there that would he was that guy that you're kind of scared that's going to like
Yeah.
like tumble into you.
Right.
Just and then he just kept trying to come up and sing, and I was just like, no, sir, no, no.
Oh, I've played with people before that have just straight up unplugged the microphone.
I mean, dude, honestly, like it's just. I just hate like I understand it. I've been a drunk buffoon before, and I get it.
Yeah.
But it's just like, guys. Like,
Well, I mean, and you have to keep order. You have to keep control.
You have to
know?
manage the crowd.
Our kind of unspoken rule in the for weddings anyway is like the bride and the groom to an extent can pretty much do whatever they want. So like the gig that I had on Saturday was the day before New Year's. The bride kept coming up and taking our wireless mic and singing. She wasn't bad, but it wasn't terrible.
Yeah,
you know. But like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna tell her to stop?
Yeah, it's like hey,
there's nothing you can do. Like, you just deal with it. You know,
it's like you're the one writing the check. So
yeah. So and but now when that happens, a lot of times her friends are gonna want to come up too. And that's where you draw the line. You're like, no, none of you.
It's her day.
It's her day,
not your day.
She can, and in any other situation, any other day or gig, you'd be like, get the fuck out of here.
Get off my stage.
But this is your day. This is the only day that you get to be a bitch.
Yeah,
really. Like,
it's like, if you want to tell us to stop, or you want to tell us to like do this, it's like, if we can, we will. Okay. Yeah. No, I get that, man. But I mean, like going back to like when you told me about the phrase menu venues.
Yeah.
I was like, that's such a good term for a lot of these places, and it kind of gave me this inspiration to, all right, yeah, those places are good to make like some, keeping things going money.
Yeah.
But man, like now my goal for this year is really to try to like swerve away from that and try to find like that path to like where, and a lot of that's going to come from like our originals and stuff like that, and then I've been doing a lot of like just reaching out to other like bands and stuff, trying to get the, hey man, here's our stuff. Like, show us if you show them what we got, and it's like, hey, if you need an opener, try to start working in that a little bit more, and just build that kind of community up a little bit with the people around.
Yeah,
and just like because that's all you can really do. It's like until you get until I have some kind of big following that demands that.
Right.
You got to kind of work with other people. And
well, the other thing is too is like people think about. You just want to get out there. You just want to play as much as you can to get the word out. But it's such a weird thing because you would think that the more that you see someone, the more you're going to want to go out and see them.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really work that way a lot of times. It's like when you're playing in a town somewhere, you have to be really choosy about the gigs you take as an original band. Because if they can come see you at the venue, then they're not. Why would they pay money to come see you at a venue?
Yeah, And I mean, I've even heard some, lines of thought where it's, hey, don't play in the same market more than once every 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah,
and I mean, there is some logic to that. It's just that's when you get to the point where, okay, if you want to see us play as like the covers and the bar gigs and stuff like that, yeah, that's one thing. And then when, okay, well, this is a different kind of venue that does not have a menu to like eat from, which, you as the audience, you can do as you will with that. But like once you get to that spot where you're playing at places that just are about, hey, we're here so you can like show your music off.
Right.
That's the biggest thing.
Right.
So, I mean, after that is, once you bridge that gap, that's when you're actually going to like see the difference in like, oh yeah, the reason you're paying, $15, $25 for a ticket. And I mean, God, and then even just thinking about the breakdown of like, okay, yeah, you might have sold, 100 something tickets. And it's like, most places they take their cut.
Yeah.
If there's a booker, they take their cut.
Right.
And then it's like whatever's left over. But I mean, it's all a process. It's like any business. You just build that up to where it's nothing that, you can't manage.
Right.
But I mean, it has to get to that point, and that's kind of.
And it can be challenging too to try to figure out which direction to go because it's like it's a chicken or the egg situation or a catch-22 kind of thing where it's like, well, we want to play actual venues where people come and pay us.
Yeah.
But nobody knows who we are.
So yeah.
So how do we do that? Well, we got to play. Well, where do you play? play in venues where people can see us. Well, nobody cares about you because no one knows who you are.
Yeah.
So where do you play? Play in a restaurant. Well, why am I going to go? Okay, so you're going to get this gig at this restaurant, build up a crowd, and then tell them to come pay to see you?
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, it's
Sometimes it works.
Sometimes it works. And I mean, the theory that I guess I would say myself, and I would assume, making an ass out of you and me.
Yep.
I'm going to assume here that, if you play, like, there's been a ton of people that, they come up to you after the show. Oh my God, you guys are so great. Like, you get the handful of people each show that kind of want to, like, support you, stuff like that. Because they love live music.
Right.
And those are the people I try to, like, definitely, if you try to get that read of how drunk they are.
Yeah.
Try to do the bar math. It's like, you've had about 7 whiskey cokes.
Right.
I don't know if you're even going to remember you were here tonight.
No.
But then, like, there's the people that, I've kind of looked into it more of who's the DDs.
Yeah.
If they're the people that are looking at you and, like, kind of keeping up. And, of course, like, if you can get those people, and then it's like, hey, if you like what we're – and I try to do better. Like, my thing I'm trying to do better is definitely take the 2 or 3 times during a show, especially if you're playing, like, a 3 to 4 hour bar gig.
Yeah.
Take at least a little snippet of time on each set to say, hey guys, if you're enjoying what we're doing, please, like, throw some love in the bucket. We got the QR codes to, if you don't have cash, we'd love any kind of support. If you don't have any cash to support us, no worries. Just give us a like and a follow. Try to keep up with us.
Right.
And you just, try to get better at that self-promotion on stage. But I always get so fixated on trying to keep the crowd engaged.
Yeah.
Because as soon as, you know how it is, as soon as you take a break, you're going to have people like, all right, well, if we're going to leave now that the band's taking a break, let's leave.
Right.
And then you come back and it's like, oh, like,
right.
We had 100-something people out here, and now we got 30.
Which is why I for a long time I've preferred the weddings because
Captive audience.
Yeah. Yeah. And people leave early, but it's like, a wedding like the one I played on New Year's Eve was probably like 150.
Yeah.
And I get paid the same amount.
Yeah.
Whether it's 50 people at a wedding or 150. So in that sense, it's better that way because it's guaranteed no matter who shows up, So like in that situation, it's like, do you want to make money or do you want to make art? And it's hard that it sucks that it's that way sometimes. But as artists too, like we got into some of this last time, just about having a different income stream, ways of coming up with passive income that Melissa shot that down for me the other day because it involves sports betting. I was like, hear me out. Hear me out.
I have a plan. It's foolproof. It's like you never split nines. And
I was like, hear me out. She goes, no. And I said, you haven't heard what I said yet. And she says, what? And I said, sports betting. She says, no.
Double no.
Absolutely not. And I said, well, if I just, no. But I can just start with 5 to, no.
Yeah. Sponsored by.
My bookie. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it's alluring,
Yeah.
I know myself. I have an addictive personality, so I don't.
Well, and I mean, I've had my taste. I've been to Vegas, Cherokee, all the places around Georgia.
Yeah.
Well, Vegas obviously not, but like Cherokee, some places in Florida and Alabama. They have the poker rooms and stuff,
Right.
and I love watching the World Poker Tour and like trying to see what the methodology is and you're thinking about it. And then one of the guys was joking on. He was like, I didn't make any mistakes. Like with how I was betting and stuff, it was dumb luck.
Yeah.
That guy hit a trip 4s. I had pocket kings.
That's the thing.
And he hit it on the river.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the fuck you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
I mean, with the sports betting,
Yep.
a lot of that. I mean,
see, this year I always kick myself in the ass because I'm not like a huge sports fan in general. I love college football.
Yeah.
And I'm getting into other sports now too as I get bored during the year. I'm just looking for something else to watch.
Looking at women's cricket.
Yeah. So the other day that was on ESPN Plus.
Here comes the Pickleball Pro League.
Oh,
right.
Jesus.
Right.
God.
Bunch
but-
of geriatrics.
But like
going at it.
I'm kind of kicking myself in the ass for not betting on Michigan this year as much as I hate Michigan.
Yeah.
Is that I a few months ago I told my dad, I was like, I just got a feeling I think Michigan's going to win it all. And he's like, I hope not.
I know.
But they beat Alabama and now they're in the national championship. I think they have a shot at winning the national championship. And had I have made that bet months ago when I wanted to, it would have been sky high because no one's gonna
Yeah.
you're all betting for Alabama to win
And I mean, like,
or Georgia.
yeah, I mean, and going into the college football playoffs and stuff this year, I mean, obviously it sucks, Florida, or not Florida State, FSU.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like that game against Georgia,
Yeah,
63.
yeah, to 3.
Holy God. And I mean, to be fair,
Yeah,
they had the quarterback issue. A lot of players on both sides declared for the draft, so they didn't want to do the bowl games
Yeah.
and stuff. And I get that, but it's just like
yeah. At the
the
same
fact
time,
that Michigan beat Bama.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, there's no and that was a game that mattered.
Mhm.
And so and once you get to a certain level in college ball, it's always like, hey, you are playing the best from around the region. Like,
right.
all my buddies that went and played D1, they
Yep.
said it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Like when you show up, you're at that school and you're
Mhm.
playing against another D1 college
Yep.
that recruited everyone's the best from their town.
Right. That was exactly the same thing when I went to music school too. I was coming in as an 18-year-old kid, and in high school I had won most talented, and there were 10 other drummers who all won most talented, and they were much better than I was, and so it was
Yeah.
really difficult to kind of find where I landed.
And I mean, it kind of take like an analogy, I guess I could say that is when you're working out and you're trying, like when I was playing football and in high school and stuff, we'd have the max days
Yeah.
where you try to max out, see how much you can actually lift,
Right.
and you'd work out for 3-4 weeks straight, just trying to like bulk up, get as much strength, and then all right, I get to 315, 3 plates, big boy weight, and then you hit that, you're like on top of the world,
Yeah.
and then you're like, all right, let's push it, and then you do the next time and you put the little 2.5s on, you're like,
Can't do it. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Save me, someone
Yep.
save me.
Yep.
Like, it's just insane, but it's that concept of like, just when you get to the far end of like your talents or like any industry, like the top performers, it's split seconds that make a difference between first and second place in the world
Yeah, man.
titles and
Yeah.
stuff.
I mean, look at relay races. You get a guy that wins by 600ths of a second.
Yeah.
And it's like those little things make a big difference at the end of the day.
Because I mean, like I remember we would joke around, like trying to get our 40 times. So like, because in high school you're trying to get recruited and stuff.
Yeah, right.
And it's like to translate into the music, it's like, how do you make that kind of like difference factor in yourself?
Right.
You turn to social media. Maybe you're the guy like, oh God, what's that dude that? He's the guy with the beard that does all the crazy like drums. Like, there's a ton of them out there, but he like has a single foot pedal.
Mhm.
And he's just playing, and he's got his snare like tuned up so like tight, and he's just sitting there like he's playing like 64 notes. Like,
sure.
oh, like I'll have to look it up, but it's
See, that's what I'm talking about, though. Is
Yeah.
like that is like views. You can monetize. You can do stuff
Yeah.
on YouTube, that kind of thing. I don't know if people from my generation, so people born between 1985 and 1995. It's a very strange sort of thing that we got going on.
Yeah.
I was born in 88, so I was around for the iPhone, but it wasn't until I graduated from college that I actually got one. And when I was in school, like we had Wi-Fi, but I still had to use my Ethernet cable because the Wi-Fi wasn't strong enough.
yeah.
Which so,
It's funny to think how that is just changed. Just like we went from
quickly,
and then now it's like if you're not using fiber, if you don't have fiber, like,
yeah,
what are you doing?
No, I mean Ethernet cables for the most part, unless you got a desktop somewhere, they're you don't. I haven't used one in years. I haven't used one since college.
Yeah.
So like, that wasn't that long ago either. I graduated college in 2010, which at this point is almost 15 years ago. But like when you consider how things have changed in such a short amount of time, like I still write things out by hand.
Yeah.
I still remember playing outside with my friends, and rather going outside with my friends than sitting inside and playing video games all day.
Yeah. Dude, this was the guy. It's crazy. He's got 3.6 million followers. I don't even know how to pronounce that, but I guarantee you've seen this dude before. Maybe.
Oh yeah.
But he just he plays like so fast, and it's like he's got a single bass pedal that he's hooked up to do double bass. Yeah. The more you look at it, the more frustrating it is. Because he's so good, and he does these incredible fills.
That's a double bass pedal.
Yeah. And like he's got a couple of videos where he's showing people how like it's insane. Like
you know what the funniest thing was is
like I mean I wish
kind of talking about this disconnect between the generations is that I must have been like the year after me everything changed through school because when I was in school the thought of
here I just send it to you, Seabass, so you can plug it later. Like that guy is insane.
the thought about sitting in your basement and playing music by yourself,
And that's going to make you money?
that was such a loser mentality.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, what are you going to play in your basement for the rest of your life by yourself? And it's like,
For-
yeah, actually, I will.
Yeah, for 3.6 million people.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I actually will. So, like, that was not something that I even thought was possible when I was learning how to play. And, like, from my formative years, you know, a lot of things can happen after you learn how to play. But in your formative years is really where you form a lot of your opinions and just your way of doing things.
Yeah,
you know, as you're learning how to do it. And so I always approach the instrument, and I feel like drums sound the best when you play them with other people, either other drummers or other musicians.
yeah, I mean, like there's a ton of like drum videos out there where it's they're playing to backing tracks, and there's the technology now where you can literally go in there and you can find either someone went in and like used either like AI or they got the stems, so they took out the drum track out of a recording session. And the guys, and there's a ton of people, guys and girls all over the place that are just these insanely good drummers. But the thing that's the X factor now is they have those tracks with so they can do their own drums in them, and then they mic it up well. They have their home studio, and it's insane how the internet is that equalizing factor where if you can do something that people connect with, or you do something that has a little quirkiness to it that people are like, oh, I like, oh, you wore that funny outfit and did this thing, or and I mean it's, or like even with TikTok, there was a video that comes to mind with Tony Hawk and Avril Lavigne.
Okay.
And she flew. I think Tony Hawk's still in like California area, but she basically flew across the United States to go do a minute-long video with Tony Hawk.
For what?
Just for clout.
Oh, okay.
Like she went out there to like either promote a song or just to like, hey, like in the whole creator space now, like people will just show up for like, hey, I just drove like 14 hours to meet with you so we could do a video for like 15-20 minutes, and all right, cool, we'll get it edited and post it here in a little while, and then all right, oh dude, it did really well. It got like 100,000 like views in the first like hour. And
right.
Like, what?
Right.
But I mean, it's the attention game, and that's one of the things that's really frustrating with music is now that everyone's attention span is so short.
Yeah, right.
Like, we'll never have another. I'd say that never, but it's very hard to grasp the idea of like someone putting out a 7-minute song.
Yeah.
That's so good and so attention grabbing for that entire 7 minutes.
Right.
Because I mean, like when you're on a long drive, it's easier and stuff like that. I mean, podcast, obviously, a long form, people just sit around talking.
Yeah, right.
And but like when it comes to music, how do you keep that attention? Like, and they have to want to listen to it.
Well, the thing is too is like back in the day, especially in the 70s, I would say, listening to a record was an event.
Yeah.
Like songs were written because they were parts of the record that were meant to be played into the next one. Like Dark Side of the Moon for Second Numbers, right? Like that is a record that is designed to be listened to from start to finish.
Yeah.
And they obviously had singles, Money and all that, but the idea of that record is that you start with the first track and you end with you don't cut it up. You listen to it the whole way through.
Yeah, it's like it was the music form of a movie.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Rock operas was another thing. I mean, but like, oh my God, like
the other thing too is like pretty much for the entire time that music could be recorded is you've had different parts, like music being used for different things.
Yeah.
Especially like in advertisements where you can either use a song that's already been written or you can write your own song, and that you kind of see that now with like TikTok videos. It's kind of the same idea.
Yep.
Right.
It wasn't me.
Yeah, if you hear a mic bumping, it's usually Seabass behind there trying to.
Oh no, it's me. I'm knocking the shit out of this thing.
It's okay. One day we'll grow up
Yeah.
and we'll get like the boom mics.
Yeah.
It's just usually once per episode. I give it a punch too, so it's all good.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, like TikTok songs. There is a Spotify playlist that
Yeah.
is called TikTok songs. So
Right.
it's like you hear that. Oh, that had a really cool hook, and it's 30 seconds, and
Right.
it's taken out of context to be funny, or the lyrics that someone probably put a lot of time and effort into write got
Yeah.
chopped up and stuff. But it's just such a weird thing now. It's either you get 30 seconds of someone's attention, or they want to sit down and listen to 3 hours of it.
Right.
Do
Which
you guys think that that's like a loss of the entire practice, or is it just a style kind of going in and out? Because like, say with like rap and hip hop, they used to be storytelling, and
Yeah.
that's definitely not the way it is anymore. Now it's just kind of go fast, regurgitate a bunch of crap, but
Right.
it's not the same storytelling that it used to be. So is this like a loss of people not? Either people just don't have the ability anymore to tell stories like that, or is it maybe just a style that comes and goes?
I'm leaning maybe more cynically in that I think the people that are consuming it, we have a much wider age range now. You got people that are in their early to like preteen years that have access to the internet with no fettered access at all, to that people that are in the later generations. I always kind of put 65 as that line in the sand.
Yeah.
Like 65 and up, who grew up through the 70s, and like you were talking about with all those incredible like rock operas and like listening to albums all the way through.
Mhm.
You have to like kind of pick your segment.
Right.
So if you want to get a big, like right now, usually you can imagine the people, I would say a business mind thinking 18 to like 35. That's your main demographic of
Yeah.
people who are making money and spending money on stuff.
Yeah.
And then before that, you used to like advertise to parents.
Right.
It's like, hey, if you're if you're the freaking Wiggles,
Yeah.
you're writing songs for kids that the parents is like, oh, okay, I let my kid watch that.
Right.
So I mean, I think it's definitely become more if you have to find your niche. Like if you want to have a long form stuff, you got to find the group of people that want that, and
Yeah.
that's the storytelling that applies to that niche.
Yeah.
Is possible, but I think as a broad painting thing, I think just everyone's attention spans are shot.
Yeah, yeah, and I also think too. That's a great question too. That
He throws them in there, man.
there are certain people like he's not a musician, but like Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
Right? Like the way that Dave Chappelle his comedy style, the way that he tells the stories, is it'll be like a 2 hour long thing, and the very last thing that he says ties directly into the very first thing he says.
Yeah, the callback.
So you have to listen to the whole thing, otherwise you're not going to get the whole context.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it is the process. Also, Dave Chappelle's been around for a long time, and he's that's just who he is, right?
Yeah.
But there are also other great comedians that don't do that. Mitch Hedberg had great one-liners, and that was his whole thing, was just a bunch of one-liners. So, like, you don't have to necessarily go one or the other. I think that there will always be an audience for all things, pretty much.
Yeah.
But I do think that, especially with the internet and especially now, like being able to buy a MacBook Pro or even an iPad or an iPhone, and it has GarageBand already installed into it,
Yeah.
and it's such a user-friendly type of thing, which is great for creating. And now you have the internet, which gives everybody the same voice for the most part. Now you get all these people that, yeah, some of it is pretty crappy. Like a good 90% of it are people that never practiced an instrument, never took lessons.
Yeah, they just got really. I mean,
Now I'm not saying you have to do that to be a great musician. There's plenty of great singers and songwriters that never took a lesson in their lives that are amazing, but
few and far between though.
right. And you, like back in the day, you really weeded out the crap because you didn't have everybody on the same equal footing.
Mhm.
So if somebody was really good, and obviously we come to the point that money rules all. So if you were a crappy artist and had millions of dollars in funding, then yeah, you were going to go record at CBS Studios in New York for 6 months,
And they were going to make it. They were going to make something that whatever you put out there, they were going to be able to do something that made it to where it's like, okay, this sounds
exactly
good.
Yeah,
So I mean, yeah, I mean the storytelling part, I think it's just become a different genre in its own. If you want to write something that has like a middle, beginning, end of an album, I remember Adele. She actually was trying to work with Spotify when she came out with an album that she wrote in that kind of format where it's like song 1 ties into the beginning of song 2. And she's like, can we make it to where on this album there's no shuffle?
Right.
Like you can't shuffle it.
Right.
And I think it was probably possible. I mean, you know, but it's weird to think that, oh, like that's still an option.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the idea of like the orchestra pits and like the theaters and the plays, having it to where it's, you know, the orchestra sitting there and they're playing through you know, movements and things and scenes, but it's all tied in together. So if you just like with like Dave Chappelle, like you're saying, if you just saw like a quick Instagram reel or TikTok of one of his jokes,
right,
like why was that so funny? Why was everyone losing their minds at that joke?
Right.
Well, it's because the 4 or 5 like jokes before there that tied into that.
Yes.
And it all kind of
he makes you have to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that is lacking now, is like people I don't care about listening to the whole thing. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
Because it's the same thing over and over again. And it's not clever, you know.
Yeah.
It's not creative. It's about kind of like, you know, like nowadays you say you play 5 different male singers, and unless you know who they are, you can't tell them apart, you know. But the same kind of thing I remember too. So there's this Buddy Rich video, this DVD that I used to watch all the time. I wore it out, and it's called Buddy Rich at the Top. And they do an interview with him before his show. It's probably one of the best recorded examples of Buddy ever. Just the way that it's shot and the way that it sounds.
Which if anybody does, please, if you're listening to this, and you're like, who the hell's Buddy? Go
look him up.
Go look him up.
Yeah.
Right now. Stop what you're doing.
From a pure drumming perspective, there is, I would say, the only other person that would match him technically is a drummer named Tony Williams, who was also a master, but in a different way. But he was talking about, and at that time it was like the early 70s, so Zeppelin was super popular, and Buddy had very strongly held opinions. Many of them are just wrong. You're just flat out wrong.
Yeah, his formative years, that he formed those opinions and stuck with it.
Right. And you know, being billed as the world's greatest drummer, it comes with a certain amount of, you know, I guess arrogance. You just call it what it is. But his thing at that time was playing triplets on the tom-tom. He doesn't call out John Bonham specifically, but John Bonham's big.
Yeah.
And because John Bonham had like 3 fills. And that's one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and that double hit bass pedal.
Yeah. He and John Bonham's top 5 favorite drummers for me, just in terms of his feel and his sound and all that. And I don't mean this disparagingly to John Bonham at all, but you know, he had 3 or 4 different licks that he played, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's working, don't fix it. Right?
Exactly. But see, like no one played like him up to that point. You know, rock was still you know, relatively new.
Yeah,
they were still taking a lot of chances.
Well, to think about the Beatles versus Led Zeppelin being in the same like music industry,
right? Yeah, and Pink Floyd and Jimi Hendrix and all the other amazing people that ran at the same time. But his thing, this is in the 70s. He was talking about drummers playing the triplets on the tom-tom like John Bonham does. And he's like, that has become so popular that I don't even know who it is now.
Yeah.
So it's still the same problem 50 years later. You know, it's still the same issue.
Well, and I think that ties into what you were saying about with the access to the recording softwares now.
Yeah.
Like you have your, you know, kind of like a car. It's like everyone's got the stock model of Rock Band.
Yeah.
Or Garage Band, I mean. Like everyone has the drums that are just preloaded with it. If you want to dive in more, you can get some other like plugins and things that maybe add a different flavor. But if you're just doing, you know, that stuff, or that's where you want to start out, you're going to have that snare. Everyone's going to hear that same snare, which I mean, to us, like you and me both, we know, ooh,
yeah,
that snare from that one song. Oh,
yeah.
How they get that sound.
Right.
And then you can get lost in that, or just but like for me as a guitar player more than a drummer, it's, you know, when you hear Steve Ray Vaughan, when you hear Jimi Hendrix, they don't have to sing, they don't have to do anything before you know, oh, that's them.
Right.
You know, John Mayer's another one. They found that sliver of getting through all that to where it's just that's their tone.
Yeah.
And then everyone that comes after them is like, oh, you're just copying their tone from
Right.
so and so. I'm like, hell yeah, because it worked.
Yeah, it's great. It's an amazing tone. And the thing is that when you copy people too, you find your own way, which is weird to think about that. But it's like the way that you play your instrument is different from anybody else, you know. And I was watching a podcast or a video on YouTube that's also a podcast, and what was it called, Drummer's Resource or something like that, where they were talking about gear from drummers. I'm watching right now Neil Peart, which they did 3 2-hour-long episodes.
No, understandably, I mean, he had like 70 different drums on his his touring kit.
So they were talking about Tony Williams, the guy I mentioned earlier, and Tony, when he was 17 or 16, started playing with Miles Davis, and wiped out everybody at that point. You know, the way that he played his stuff, I think, is more important than what it actually is. You know, Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan can play the same guitars, but it's not going to sound the same because of the way they play it.
Yeah.
So you can get bogged down into the hardware and
the technicalities,
all that, which is fun. Like, I love to nerd out on drums. It's one of my favorite things in the world, to try to listen to something on a recording and see if I can place, that's a superphonic snare, or that's a custom cymbal. You know, I love to play those kind of games with myself because I like to just practice with that. But it's a tough time right now too to do anything new and to do anything creative, because you're not even really sure what offends people anymore. And it's not like we should care about that as an artist, but you kind of do it in a sense, because now we're at a point where, culturally anyway, to have a different opinion will get you shut down sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Green Day, I don't know if you saw that thing that they did for their New Year's Eve.
That's it.
Speaking of Green Day, I love Green Day.
Yeah.
I think they're great artists and stuff. And then, but at their New Year's Eve performance, you know, they played American Idiot.
Yeah.
And he changed the lyrics. I don't want to be a part of a MAGA agenda.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, cool, whatever, dude. It's America. And it's ironic because you were talking about, with that album, you know, American Idiot was talking about the whole, you know, way that America has just become so corporatized, like all the people that with the money are controlling all the people with the policies, and now you're falling into that in a kind of a sense. And I mean, like Billy Joel Armstrong, like, you know, nothing but respect for Green Day and stuff. And I would, you know, if I had the opportunity to ever sit down and talk with someone of his caliber, and like, I would be like, dude, okay, yeah, great, I know where you stand on that. Dude, so tell me about like all these gigs that I've heard about, like all these stories. Like, it's more about the journey that you went on.
Well, you know, the other thing is that they have to continue to be relevant.
That's that's a struggle in its
and
own.
it's not just them; it's everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, well, now with the internet, what's the thing that you're? Well, and it's always been this way with tabloids too. People go out and they, you know, cut off their left ear or whatever. You know, whatever the thing is, it's going to bring them attention.
Who's dating who?
Yeah, right. You know, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift thing. Like,
Jesus,
who gives a shit about any of that, right?
Swifties.
But like, it's about, you know, staying relevant. And I think I might have been talking to my wife about this or something, but like the whole devil in music thing is so overdone.
Well,
it is so overdone. Like, go back and look at Ozzy Osbourne. Go back and look at Iron Maiden.
Alice Cooper.
Black Sabbath.
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
Marilyn Manson's on.
Marilyn Manson.
He was a big one. He's like, oh, this
been
is
done.
Yeah,
it's not offensive anymore. It's just not. And like, people now, it's like you're not even pretending. You just worship the devil. Like, that's fine. It's not offensive. You've taken it to the point now where it's like, I forget who it was, it Dua Lipa or somebody recently had a video out where they're like having an abortion in the video.
Jesus Christ.
And it's like, but at this point, it's like, I've seen so much shit already.
It's not shocking.
That it's just not shocking. Like, you know what is shocking now is a married couple for 25 years. That's shocking.
Yeah. Well, or like
children that are the same gender as they are sex. That's shocking.
Yeah. It's
you
like,
know?
No, I'm a boy.
Yeah. It's like, wait a minute. No, you can't think like that. This is 2024. You got to, you know, so it's almost like the counterculture way is now.
Yeah, the pendulum swings one way and then it comes back. I mean, like one of you're familiar with Theo Vaughn,
No. Oh, yeah, yes.
Like he
Theo Von,
had
yeah.
Kate Von, oh god, the tattoo artist,
Kat Von D.
Kat Von D. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, he had her on his podcast. I listened to it. It was a great podcast, but it was like the thing that grabbed me was I wanted to hear her journey into finding her way back into a church, and people like, what?
Yeah.
She like, I mean, like you said, now the punk rock thing is to be a stable, like straight, normal, like being a normal person. Like into 2000, like 1990 to 2000 standards.
Yeah.
Like that's like, what, you're going against the culture now.
Yeah.
It's like, what, going against it. Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to be a part of the MAGA agenda. That's fine. Well, then why did your corporate overlords put him in the spotlight for 7 years?
Yeah. I mean, and
Like, don't be a part of it. Stop giving him attention. He'll go away. You can't do it.
Well, hell, even thinking about Green Day, like they made a joke where the Time of Your Life song.
Yeah.
They wrote that to be punk rock because everyone was like, "You're not punk rock anymore. You're selling out." And he's like, "You know what's the most punk rock thing to do is whatever like they're telling you not to do."
Yeah.
And so they wrote a kind of commercialized song. Did great.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. People played that at like graduations. It's the time of your life.
It's a good song.
It's a great song.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with music now. Like it's when you get to a certain level, there's so few musicians that I can think of that are at that top tier level that aren't politically, they're like, hey guys, just love your neighbor, well, hell, that's a trigger, it's like, that's a commandment. It's like, guys, just be nice to each other.
Yeah.
Be a good person, help each other out.
Right.
And like, you have to just do it this like, white bread, vanilla, just, hey, just, we're going back to the basics here.
Yeah.
Just be a good person. If you don't know what that means, then you're probably not doing it.
Right.
So, but but it's part of the tabloids. How do you stay relevant? Going back on the Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Maybe hopefully, I'd like to believe that it was just an organic thing. Like they really do like each other. There's something about it. You're in that top tier of like fame, and like she's Taylor Swift. Obviously, is once in probably a few generations of a pop star. Like she's once in a lifetime. Like there's so few people that are ever going to get to that. Travis Kelce, he's obviously a great football player. He's got Super Bowls, got all that accolades. And the fact that they're both in that atmosphere,
yeah,
who are you going to date?
Right.
Like,
Right. And it's now it's especially too with like the 24-hour news cycle. It really started with that.
Oh God, yeah.
It was like you got to have something. You got to have content all the time.
I want to find out when that started. Like, when was the first like kickoff of the 24-hour news cycle? Like, what do you think it was?
O.J. Simpson, the O.J. Simpson trial.
Ooh, that's probably a really good guess.
Because I seem to remember somebody talking about that, where it was like the first time that like the reporters didn't leave the house. I'm sure it's happened before, but like where it was just on all the time, and like every single news network created it, or maybe it was because in the mid 90s, CNN started doing it for 24 hours. Something like that.
Let's see. I'm going to when did the 24/7 news cycle?
It's been crazy to kind of see that progress too.
Dude, you nailed it. It was CNN. On June 1st, 1980, CNN, the world's first 24-hour television news network, makes its debut. Well, yeah, I mean 24 hours. I mean
and that was just one channel on one station.
Yeah,
at
in
that
1980,
time.
like there was like what 15 at the most if you had like some kind of crazy package or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. And so it wasn't as ubiquitous as it is now, where now everybody does that, and they're all trying. And it's always been that. Who's going to break the big story first?
Yeah. Which nowadays, if you're the problem with trying to be the first person to break the news story, it's
sometimes it's not factual.
Sometimes it's not.
And there's no sort of accountability now for artists. Like Green Day, right? You can say you can go up there and say whatever you want because you got paid $50,000 to go up there and do it.
Yeah.
It's like, so all right, so you're gonna yell at me from your limousine. You limousine liberals are talking about how like, you don't want to be part of your MAGA agenda. That's fine. Don't be part of it. But you think what's going on now is any better?
Yeah. I mean, okay, so how much did BlackRock pay you to say that?
Yeah, dude. I'm the sole provider of my family, paying the bills and buying the food. I know how goddamn expensive things are now.
Yeah.
And like you're gonna tell me that things are better now than they were. Like I don't care what it's just not. It's just factually not the same.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
like,
do we both like? I would assume we probably both were like, yeah, I'd love to have so much money that I don't care what things cost
yeah,
anymore. But since we're not there yet,
right.
it's like I feel like when the gas goes up from $2.75 to almost $3.
Yeah,
I mean, criminy. I remember when like was it Hurricane Katrina or like it was one of the big hurricanes that knocked out a bunch of oil refineries and everyone rushed to the gas station. It was the first time I'd seen gas like, oh, it's not readily available.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
oh my god,
yeah,
what,
yeah, yeah.
what are we gonna do?
Yeah, or during COVID, the supply chain shortage, and especially things like fast food have just are so astronomically high now. I remember like when I was in high school, we would ditch at lunch, like everybody did, and we would go to Burger King.
Dollar menu, baby. You can't find that anymore.
Well, but even the combo meals, I would get a Whopper with cheese, with fries and a Coke, and it was like $4.70.
Yeah,
And I could find that in change in my car.
it's like yeah,
And now I went to Burger King the other day. I got the exact same thing. It was like $11.
yeah.
And like this is when I was in high school. This wasn't even like 50 years ago. This was like 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean,
And it's
dude,
not that long for that big of a jump.
there's no world that I want to live in where cheesy bean and rice burrito from Taco Bell is like almost $3.
Yeah, like that was what you went when you were dirt poor, when you literally were starving and you had a dollar and quarters in your car. You can go to Taco Bell and get a full meal.
Yeah.
But like,
Was it good for you? You didn't care. You were broke.
right? Yeah, yeah. I'll worry about being healthy when I can afford it.
Yeah.
So again, it's like just being a normal person, being a conservative person, and being a Christian nowadays is the shocking part of it.
It's like I can't believe you went to a church.
Yeah,
It's like yeah, I was kind of struggling. These people wanted to talk to me about stuff, and they didn't judge me, and I found my own way, and they support that. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the downside? Well, they don't. They have their own set of standards and rules that we don't agree with. It's like so do you.
well, and there's no difference nowadays between secularism and old school religion, because you have your sacrifices, you have your abortions. That's your sacrifice, your human sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
You have your churches, which are not churches; they're whatever they are. It's a religion without grace.
Yeah.
Because the minute that you look at someone like J.K. Rowling, for
Yeah.
example, fairly liberal person, right? Said a statement of fact, which is if
Boys are boys.
boys are boys, girls
Girls
are
are
girls.
girls.
It's a factual statement. It's
You
a factual
can't-
statement.
You can't be a man and be pregnant.
They lit her on fire. Now, granted, she's making tons of money now.
Yeah, she's
with
got the buffer money.
Yeah. So and I mean, she's in no danger of being broke. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because there are people too that will support her even harder because she said that.
Yeah.
Where that they wouldn't have before. So like that being a controversial statement is silly
Yeah.
because it's just a fact. And so now you live in a time where everyone has their own truth, and that's not truth. Like it's either true or false. There's no my truth or your truth or whatever.
Yeah, dude. An example of that was kind of funny. The Joy Villia. You remember her?
Mhm.
Like she just wore a Trump dress.
Yeah.
At the Grammys, and like okay, it's like she was making a statement, but she was playing it smart. It was
Right.
like, oh, regardless, she really is down for that or whatever. It's like, oh, this is the thing that's going to be talked about all day, all week.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, her music, you had the people that are just like, oh,
Right.
the first time I've ever heard of you, but I saw you supported the same thing I support. I'm going to run to you and buy your album, buy your.
And I'm not a fan of those kind of people either, because
the grifting kind of thing.
Yeah, because like be who you are, unless that is offensive, I guess. Because like, how often did we hear in school? Like, you're not too much younger than me, but how often have we heard throughout our lives, like, be yourself? It's like, well, what if myself is I only believe in two genders and I'm a Christian, and
It's like, oh, nowadays, no,
you can't do that.
Can't do that.
But like, be you.
Yeah.
Just not that way. Not that you. Be a different you.
I
So
think, and that's funny because just had the thought go through my head. It's like maybe since all the generations like before you and me, like just like or right at the like point where we were in like elementary school.
yeah,
It's like you can be whatever you want.
Yeah.
Those kids took that and ran with
That's
it a little
another
too
lie.
hard.
You can't be whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean,
I will never be 6'5" and a basketball player. It ain't gonna happen.
I blame participation trophies.
Yeah.
I mean,
Those didn't exist when I was playing sports.
Yep.
But that every kid gets them now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, what's
Sorry,
the
you
point
don't
of
get rewarded for showing up.
Yeah, what's the point of playing your heart out if everyone's going to get a trophy? There's no separation of that.
Right.
And I mean, it's funny thinking about it, with music, there's no participation trophy.
Mm-mm.
It's like you can put your heart and soul into a song, a single, an album.
Yep.
And all right, cool.
Yeah.
Well, there kind of is a participation trophy because now everyone can just get GarageBand, whatever it is,
Yeah.
right there in their own home. They have a small recording
Well-
studio available
well,
at
that's
their
what-
fingertips. Meanwhile, before, to make music, you had to pass the barrier of getting into a studio to make a CD.
Well, what I'm saying is not that necessarily. That's true. But I'm saying there's no participation trophy. And like, oh, that's great. You made a song on your laptop. Okay, no one's heard it.
Right.
Like to get people to hear it is what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
the reward for music, at least in my mind, is when people respond to it, say, "Hey, man, I love that song." If someone told me, "Dude, you wrote that song and I played it at my wedding for my first dance,"
Yeah. Yeah.
I might
Yeah.
cry.
Yeah.
I would probably cry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like having that kind of thing with music, and I think that's kind of why some people might kind of gravitate towards it.
Yeah.
I want to make something that's me. There's no participation trophy. You don't get 100,000 streams just because you wrote a song.
Right.
You might if you put a song out that has a certain agenda behind it.
Yeah.
You go into those streams. There's that possibility, but I mean, at the end of the day, you have to have something that is unique. That's you. That's people connect to, and you have to work to get it out there these days. Because, like you said, Seabass, there's no nothing stop if you can get a refurbished Mac computer. You can make beats on your fucking iPhone these days.
Right. Right.
And put it on SoundCloud, and
Yeah.
then if you pump that stuff out there, you're posting about it. You're asking people to, hey, can you use this in your YouTube? This that there's a way you can work up the ladder in a sense, but I mean, you're not going to just get that just for writing a song.
Right.
So I mean,
And it's tough nowadays too to even know where to start as an artist because there are so many different avenues to go through now, and like I guess it's always kind of been that way, but even more so now with the internet and YouTube and everything else that's connected to it is like, all right, well, what's my first step? Like, what do I even do to get started with this?
it's like
First step should always be to get good at whatever you're doing.
Yeah. Get good at what you're doing, and then find some other people that are good at what they do and can add to that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Figure out what you want to do, which I still don't know. I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. I have
me
no
neither,
idea.
man.
So like, try to get as close to that as you can, right? And then get really good at it.
Yeah. And
And
then
that takes a long time, and it takes a lot of patience. And that's why I tell my students the same thing all the time, that if this were an easy thing, then everyone would do it.
yeah.
Because it's simple, it's easy,
Well,
right?
and
And the fact that it's difficult is why not everyone does it, because people will get into it. Someone will get into it for a while, and then they'll give it up because it's too hard or whatever.
people didn't I didn't get the response I wanted from like releasing my album that I've been writing for like the last 2 years. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like you can and I mean, nowadays it's so like when it goes into money going into because you got the distribution channels.
Yep.
Which kind of going off of Seabass point, back in the 70s to even get a single, the little 20, what was it, the 22s?
At that point, it would have been 78s.
Yeah.
45s or 78s.
Yeah, I think 45s, like those records that were just one song.
Yeah.
And like to even have enough money as a band
yeah.
to go into a studio, get that done,
Right.
and then okay, now that it's done, what are you going to do with it? Like
Yeah.
send it to what are you going to make copies of it? That costs money. Are you going to send that out to radio stations? Are they going to play it?
That's true.
And I mean, and if they do play it, like how are you going to get your royalties? You get,
I was gonna say it was a little more simple back in the day. It wasn't easier.
yeah, it was just
It was
more
a little more
straightforward.
simple in the sense of like at that point anyway, you had CDs, and that was your main mode of listening to anything.
Yeah.
At that point, and you also had at that point in time too, you had bands that were doing CDs worth of material, not just singles, but it was
Yeah.
kind of heading that way.
Well, yeah, I mean, and when the CD came out, like the compact disc, like for the younger audience, a CD is You used to go and buy these things at CD stores.
Yeah.
That used to be record stores.
Yeah, right.
And then you take that CD and you'd put it in a device.
Yep.
Called like
CD player.
a CD player. Those that also don't exist anymore.
Right.
But I mean, then like just even that. Like I remember, like you're saying, like kind of the gap in the speed of technology.
Yeah.
I remember, like I started officially taking lessons when I was about like 9 or 10 years old for guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got to about like 13, 14, I felt like I had some shitty songs that were awful, but I was like, all right, but I can play these. I love them. It's like, it's my stuff.
Right.
And then, you know, I took all my birthday money, like I saved up over the years and whatnot. It's like, all right, I want to take this to a studio and we're going to get it recorded. And then it's like, all right, now I got to find a way to, oh shit, I had to buy CDs. And
right.
I mean, there used to be the guys that, like, I mean, this is kind of
was it disc masters, disc makers?
There was I used CD Baby.
Okay.
Because they had like it was a warehouse. The CD Warehouse was another company that had a great part of that.
Right.
But I mean, now it's just you go with DistroKid's one of the big players on there. Bandcamp, a lot of distribution people that is like, hey, we have a license to get you on all these different platforms.
Right.
And after that, it's like, all right, cool. Like, you want to pay for a promotion package? Like, we can, and then you start paying for, we can guarantee this many streams. We can guarantee this many, video like views and stuff. Which, how do you guarantee that?
Right.
You buy them.
I mean,
you buy bots.
You buy bots, and you buy the bots get you into an algorithm that maybe gets you to some real people. And like you're saying, it wasn't easier back in like the 80s and 90s and stuff. It was just more straightforward. You get a really kick-ass band put together. You write some top-notch songs, the best you can do. You get them on it. You get a great take, and then you put it out there, and then you hopefully find someone that's willing to pick you up and distribute.
Because there weren't so many mediums back. Even I'm not even talking about 70s and 80s or 90s. I'm talking about like when I went into the studio to record my first professional albums in 2010.
Yeah,
and we bought CDs and did it that way. And it was 14 years ago.
Yeah,
2010. So even in that short amount of time, it's like when we release our stuff, we're doing it in a bit of a different way. We're not doing it in terms of a whole album. We're doing it single by single. But see, even then, like that's trickled into what we do now.
Yeah,
because it's like that's just the way that the music industry is, and so you got to figure out what your what your difference is right there. And it's not what you do, it's how you do it.
Yeah.
Really. And really, like, the way that I like what we're personally doing with our stuff is I do want to have more of a budget for the promo.
You got to these days.
And not so much about, like, the recording of it. Because, like, with Brad's great. He gets great sounds in his studio. That probably better or as good as it would be at Tree Sound or anywhere else.
Which he does work with Tree Sound.
He does. He does. Yes. And I'm not to take away from anything like that.
No, we just love Brad.
Yeah, I absolutely love Brad. He's one of my favorite people. He's become one of my favorite people. I'm glad I got to know him through you. But we could record an album in here on GarageBand or Logic, and it would sound
decent at best.
It would sound fine. It would sound just the same as a regular album would.
Yeah.
And so you don't need to spend $10,000 to go into the studio to record an album anymore.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, if I had $10,000 that like someone wanted to just like, hey man, go make an album.
Yeah.
Like, okay, yeah, I might,
I pay the band $2,000 worth of that and put the rest of it into promotion.
Because if you could do that, then just the amount of streams, like, I mean, Christ, I remember with Trombley Bay and stuff, we kind of were looking into the beginning of the bots.
Right.
You could buy like all those people, like you could buy followers, and people started getting called out on Twitter for that because they'd be that artist that just, how does this guy have like 100,000 followers on Twitter now known as X?
Right.
Like how'd you do that? It was like, and then you'd see these spikes. They'd spike up. Oh, I got like 100,000 followers, and then like they stopped paying the monthly whatever to have the bots stay.
Yep.
And because I mean, bots counts would get taken down, so they'd replace them, and then it was this constant replace. And then okay, well, we're just going to start doing our thing again, and like it drop. They get back to maybe a couple hundred, maybe 1,000. It's like, whoa, dude, what happened? Did you say something you weren't supposed to? And
right.
Like,
it's like what's even real anymore? You know, like
you didn't know we're all in a simulation.
You just live in this. I mean, being on your phone all the time, being online all the time, it is, and I'm guilty of it. Something I'm trying to consciously break from. But like, you start living your life through your device. and then you lose track of what actually is real.
Yeah.
You know, like we're talking about bots. We're talking about fake people.
Fake people.
So generating fake buzz about crap. Sometimes it's not all crap.
Well, I mean,
most of it is.
Yeah, I mean, and with the music nowadays, since and you, me both, I think, don't want to just shit on people making music. You're like, make music. We all love making music, so we get it.
Right.
But like, if you make something, like, there is a certain standard of like, if well, how do I put it? It's like the way like art nowadays is. You could see someone that has a 4x4 or 4x6 canvas.
Yeah.
That they just paint their body on and roll all over, and it's like, all right, I went to $1.3 million.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
There were there was something I saw online the other day.
It has to be true.
About these art students. What did they put on it was like a pineapple. They took a regular pineapple
And they just put it on the
and they put it on the thing. You know, they just set it there.
Yeah.
And they were like, is someone gonna think this is an art piece, or are they gonna just throw it away because it's garbage? Right?
Yeah.
And they put a glass thing over it.
Or
it was like an art piece. Like it's just a pineapple. Like this is not art. It's just a pineapple.
Like that scene from Sunny in Philadelphia with Danny DeVito. He's like, "This is art." It's like, that's what was it? A trash can?
Yeah.
It was like, this is art.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's our waste bin.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, well, it's beautiful. Put it in our, like, I mean,
which I get. Like, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Art is in the eye of the beholder. I get that. But I also feel like there's a point where you can go too far with it, and it's like, no, like avant-garde music kind of gets me there, where it's like, you don't actually know what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be like avant-garde, like Frank Zappa, who knew what he was doing. Obviously,
yeah.
His bands would rehearse 16 hours a day. He had his players on retainer. His songs were so hard, you can't just sub that gig out.
Like, it's like, no, we need you to stick around.
Yeah. So he his guys were paid a stipend to not go on tour, to not take other gigs, to rehearse with them 15, 16 hours a day. Like, and that was avant-garde as fuck. Like, there's some stuff that's so out there that it's been hard for me to get into. Free jazz, the same kind of thing. There are a lot of amazing jazz musicians that, like John Coltrane, was kind of at the forefront of the free jazz movement, at least the most popular mainstream jazz artist.
Definitely one of
them into there. But like, he knew what he was doing. He chose to play that way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of avant-garde-ness out there. It's like, you're just doing it because you don't know what you're doing. And that's to me, that's the difference between art and not art. Is like, if it's the intention, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, it's not even like, what do I know what I'm doing from like a technical perspective or from a note reading perspective. It's like, am I choosing to do this because I want to, or because I don't have any other choice?
Yeah. One thing that kind of makes me have such weird conflicting feelings is indie music.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, what's really good, and what is just a bunch of art majors that play guitar?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I mean, like, I've seen so many quote unquote indie bands, and I've heard a lot of, there's, stuff that'll pop up that kind of gets put on the TikToks and the Instagram reels, where it's the music, these people want to make something that resonates with them.
Yeah.
Maybe, but it, like, I'm trying to think of a good example, like the Pixies. Where's My Mind?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, it was all well put together and stuff like that. I love that track. I love a lot of the stuff that they did. But now I listen to some stuff where, you got the angsty, 20-somethings that are just playing 3 chords, and it's just, they play them, and then the guy is talking into the mic, and this is how he sings.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
yeah,
there's nothing technically wrong with that, but I mean, I don't resonate with it, because you're just singing like, or you have that really awful, can't hold a pitch singer that's just like, howling into the mic.
Yeah.
I don't want to sing.
Right. And that's supposed to be like something.
It's like, dude, I love this sound. It's like, oh, if you love it, that's you, dude.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, some people like, well done steaks.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And like, and it's like you said before too. We're not trying to like, I mean, obviously, like, no one knows who we are, so it's not like we're coming at this from
you
like
guys. We're better than all of y'all.
Yeah. Like, I know full well where I am in this business and in my career at this point in my life, and
but I mean, just because you say, oh, well, no one knows who you are, it's like, that doesn't mean that we're not
They don't have valid
good.
opinions,
Yeah.
or that you're not good either. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And a lot of unknown artists are great.
There's
And they'll,
so
they'll,
many.
they'll never see the light of day because they don't have the right publicity. And now now you've gone completely the opposite way with all of the internet and YouTube, Facebook, Instagram is in that you have so much stuff now. You have so much content that you will never get to the end of it.
Yeah,
You know?
the never-ending scrolling.
Yeah, you'll never get there. And like, I see it a lot too with drum educational videos, where so many people are talking about like, it's not just drums either; it's everything else.
Yeah, any music.
Like the right way to do something. There's not a right way to do something.
There's what works for you, and then there's what sounds like
Exactly.
maybe that's not your style.
Yes.
It's like maybe not that one. Try,
There's not one way to do it.
Yeah.
There's not one way to do it. And that's what I tell my drum students all the time. Like, this is what I'm teaching you is what I do. And even that changes as I learn more about what I'm doing.
Well, I mean, even like when we were talking last time I was jamming with you, I was like, man, my left hand, like I feel like I've lost like a step with it. And you're like, well, try doing the thing where you don't hold it with the back three fingers, or like there's things like that. And kind of, for me, like I say, I tie everything a lot into like working out because there's a lot of similarities into, well, if you're trying to work out this muscle, you're trying to do this thing for that goal.
Right.
This is something that I found works. And if you're looking to, if you want to have like a drums, like the snare drum is a big thing with a lot of drummers, like that snare.
That's the most important drum on your kit.
Yeah. Like, and I mean, me personally, my own preference.
Yeah.
I hate hearing that little snare where it's just, dude, it's
the fat snare.
The fat snare that's just quite literally, not the lug nuts on it are like rattling in the recording because it's just there's no tension.
Right.
It's just dead and just like.
It's a sound.
I can't. It makes a sound.
It's a sound. It has a place.
But it's just something I don't. I'm like, dude, there's like you're literally not using it the way I'm used to it being used.
Yeah.
It's new. I'm old. It scares me.
Right.
Like,
yeah, there is that too. There's a certain part of that where we get stuck in our ways as people, even not even as artists, but we just kind of get stuck there. And I think that's kind of where guys like Buddy Rich are coming from. Was like he believed what he did, and that was it.
Yeah.
And being counted as the world's greatest drummer at that time,
his
there's
opinion
a lot.
should carry some weight.
Yeah. Which is like, why should I change my opinions? Like, what I'm doing works. So, like, no, you're wrong. I'm right. I'm the greatest, right?
Well, or even
not me, Buddy, obviously.
Yeah.
But
Well, yeah, in
No,
my opinion,
no.
in my humble opinion,
not even close.
But I mean,
I'm not even my own favorite drummer.
Is Ringo the best drummer in the world? He's not the best drummer in the band.
He's not even the best drummer in the Beatles. Yeah, right. But like I try to keep, because I see people a lot online too that they go the opposite way with that, and they get too caught up in they're smelling their own farts, and it's like, okay, yeah, you have a style, you have a thing, you have a voice, that's fine. Try to do something totally different from that.
Yeah.
Some drummers that I know that are serious chops players, I've heard them play a pocket groove, and they're terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible. They can't even keep time. They speed up.
Well, you see, like the power lifter tries to do like a marathon.
Yeah, can't do it
Can't
because he's not actually in shape.
Yeah, he's just like, I can lift 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
One time.
Right.
I can't run a mile.
That's not being strong. That's not being in shape. That's you can lift a bunch of weight. It's different, So it's kind of the same thing in music too, where it's like, yeah, you have your thing, and to an extent, you have to have that. You have to have your own voice. Otherwise, why would I listen to you?
Yeah, versus the other guy.
They're like Tony Williams. Come back to these guys all the time. They're some of my favorite players. There's another drummer out there, Cindy Blackman. Now Cindy Blackman Santana, but she played with Lenny Kravitz back in the day, and she's a phenomenal jazz drummer. Cindy Blackman.
Was she the drummer that with Kid Rock?
No,
that was
Stephanie Ellenberg was her, but Cindy Blackman plays with Santana still, and Santana, at least to me anyway, is kind of notorious for just burning through drummers. I mean, that dude's worked with like 50 drummers his entire career. and they don't really ever tend to stay in this band for very long. I don't know why, but she has a playing style that is very similar when she's playing swing anyway to Tony Williams, and she modeled her drum set after him. Tony had a very distinctive kit. He had two drums up top, rack toms, bass drums, snare drum in the middle, and then he had three floor toms.
Three.
Yeah.
I've only seen two, where like you had like the two and then the stacks or something like that.
Yeah,
like
so
roto toms.
so
or something.
he up until like the mid or early 70s, early to mid 70s, he used a 4-piece kit with two cymbals. And that's it.
Crash and ride.
Yeah, 22-inch ride, 18-inch crash, 14-inch hats, and then he used an 18-inch kick later on, 14-inch snare, 12, 14. And that was it until like the mid 70s when he switched his style up. And the reason why he plays so many drums, same with like Neil Peart, is that they play parts on the drums.
Yeah.
They're not just playing rhythms. They're playing like melodic parts along with it. So you need those other voices in there to make those melodic parts happen.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you can't do everything you can do on one string.
Yeah.
It's just not possible.
Well, I mean, like you listen, like with Neil, like with Rush and stuff like that. When you I say Neil like we're on a first name basis.
Right.
Yeah. But like when you hear Tom Sawyer, the like the big like you if like you use my drum set that's just a jazz kit, the two toms.
It doesn't work.
You
Yeah,
like,
yeah. It's like it's okay. It's not great. It's like purgatory.
Yeah, it's
you
like
know?
okay, technically you hit everything in the time that it was supposed to be hit, and you subdivide it between that or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just you have to like when you're trying to do that. Obviously, if you as a drummer that's gigging somewhere, if you play that one Rush song,
Yeah.
there's no like oh god, I've seen like guitar players used to do that with the double stack Marshall.
Yep.
And I feel like a lot of drummers have done that.
Yep.
Where they have an outrageously, obnoxiously big kit
Mhm.
that they only use this hi-hat snare ride.
Drummer for Kiss, Peter Criss was the first guy. And then who was the other guy?
It was either the cat, the fox.
Gosh.
We can use technology.
Yeah, but I don't want to do it on camera.
And that's okay. Drummers.
Peter Criss was up there for Eric Carr is the other guy. I couldn't think of the guy's name.
I got you.
I believe Eric Carr was their first drummer, and then he quit for a while, and then Peter Criss came in, and then Eric Carr came back. I think.
Yeah, they had two Erics, an Eric Singer and Eric Carr, and then Peter Criss.
Eric Singer was later.
Yeah.
So I think Eric Carr was their first. Left. Peter Criss came in. Eric Carr came back. I think when Eric Carr passed away is when Eric Singer came in. I think. I'm not the world's biggest Kiss fan.
Yeah.
But prime example of having a bunch of stuff and not using it.
But then again, Kiss was a show.
They were a show.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
It's like maybe they did some like live performances where they let the guy cut loose. But I mean, most of their tracks there wasn't much on. It was groove. It was pocket. It was just putting that part in there. But I mean, God, like
here's a hot take too.
Ooh,
drummers like they love to judge other players. A lot of drummers love to judge other drummers based on how little stuff they can use.
Yeah,
and that to me is always such a BS argument because like there are tons of trash drummers that play small kits.
You can do very bad with very little.
Yeah, so like it's not really about the size of your. It's not the size; it's how you use it.
Yeah, there you go.
In watching these documentaries,
it is very large. It's actually quite massive.
The drum set, obviously.
Yeah.
But in watching these podcasts on these drummers' gear, especially Neil and Tony, Neil especially, there was a place for every part of his drum set, and he might only use one part of it one time in one song.
Yeah,
and that's it. But there was a place for everything. So I don't care how many drums a drummer uses. Terry Bozzio, he played with Frank Zappa. He had his own band in the '80s called Missing Persons. And this dude plays melodic stuff on the drums.
Yeah.
And the way that he plays is ostinato driven. So he'll play one pattern with his feet and then another pattern with his hands. sometimes in different time signatures.
Ugh.
Like he'll play in 7 with his hands and play in 4 with his feet. It's insane.
That makes my head hurt.
I've
but I
never
love
seen
it.
anybody play drums like Terry Bozzio because he doesn't play. He's got a great groove, which you hear on Missing Persons and Frank Zappa, but he doesn't play that way anymore. He plays the drums as like a melodic orchestration.
He plays
unit.
lead drums.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, right. And he's got drums. Neil too. You know, they got drums that wrap around them,
Yeah.
and he's got layers of stuff.
Well, even the like,
But he uses it all, and the way that he does it is very musical and very creative.
well, I mean, like I've seen those kits with like the Rototom age, like
Yeah.
where you have all the different Rototoms, and then you have like the kind of almost like a keyboard setup where it's like, and you're hitting all these like drums that are quite literally tuned to a certain frequency
Yeah.
because it's supposed to match some kind of melodic thing. And then I mean, like get into that kind of like drumming and stuff is awesome as a drummer as well. It's you want to see like push the limits, push the envelope.
Right.
But at the same point, like I love seeing someone make, like with a cook, like a chef, anybody that can make like an amazing meal with just such minimal like ingredients.
Yeah.
Like how?
Yeah.
It's like let him cook. Just
But
let him cook.
It's also impressive to have somebody that has many different things, but knows when to use them.
Well, like with your kit that I've seen you use, you have the other like the smaller floor tom on the other side of the snare, right?
Yeah.
Like seeing you like, and even my drummer Ethan,
Yeah.
like, dude, he got for I want to say it was either Christmas or his birthday. He got one of those little poppy snares.
Oh yeah, dude.
And he's been using that, and it's just been fun to watch him use that in like creative ways. And I mean, like, you can't really necessarily do it with a guitar, I'd say, as much where oh, I'm going to take the G string off. You
Right.
can change the tuning of them and stuff. But I mean, with drums, you can take away, add,
Yeah.
and like make these whole new. It gives you a new way to think.
That is true. The drums are kind of the only like 100% customizable instrument there is, because I mean you have like 7-string guitars and stuff like that, but you go see 4 different drummers, or 4 different bands, you'll see 4 different drum sets.
Yeah.
Granted, a lot of them might be based around the 4-piece kit, which is
Yeah.
kind of where I base mine around. No matter how big it gets or or small it gets, it's always based around the snare drum,
Yeah.
because the snare drum is the most important part of the kit.
Well, I mean, the idea of using a house kit for like 5 bands.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, it's not my preferred way of doing it.
I mean, it's if
I understand why, especially if I'm second, you know?
yeah,
Like,
or
or
God,
first even.
I've had gigs where someone was like, "Hey man, do you just mind if we just use your kit?" And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah, kind of.
kinda, yeah.
Which, by the way, we all know the second band in a group of 3 is the best slot.
yeah, you get the draw from the first band and the people coming in for the last band,
Uh-huh.
and I mean, God,
Yep.
like
And your own people, hopefully.
hopefully, yeah. But I mean, God, there's been like, and it's really fun to watch, like being in those gigs where it's like, hey, the promoter and stuff, the people that put on the show, they go and book 5-6 bands.
Yeah.
You start, the first band opens at 7:30. The last band starts at like midnight, 1 o'clock.
Right.
And it's always funny. It's like, yeah, okay, we're going to base like Afton. I think I've talked about them before, but like I used them a lot when I was first trying to just get anywhere to play.
Right.
Because the thing is like, yeah, you want to play? All right, cool. We'll book you for a Tuesday night at some random place.
Yeah.
And here we'll send you the link so you can sell tickets. There'll be physical tickets at the door.
Right.
And then you'd ask them, all right, what time do we go on? It's like, oh, it's based off your ticket sales.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So you could go on somewhere between 7:30 and 1 a.m.
Right.
and you won't know until the day of.
Yeah.
And this was like still around when MySpace was a thing.
Right.
So the idea of like telling people, hey, show up between 7:30 and 1 a.m. Oh, we're going to go on sometime between that. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
It's like, dude, it's Tuesday. I got to go to work tomorrow.
Right.
Or like in my case, it's like, dude, we're in high school. Like,
Yeah, right.
Like we got school tomorrow. Like I can't be out till 1 a.m. He's like, you're going to be up playing on Xbox. Just
Right.
hanging out."
Yeah, that's true.
Try to work them in there. But I mean, and the thing is like, then I ran into a couple situations where, a band that maybe was gigging a lot more, or like they were 18 and were playing bar gigs and could get into those and get money for it.
Right.
So they could play a couple shows, build up a little slush fund, if you will.
Yeah, yeah.
So that way when they all right, we got a gig booked at this really cool venue,
Mhm.
which I mean that was the best part about Afton was like you get to go say, oh, I got to go play at the Masquerade,
Right,
or I got
right,
to go play at like Center Stage,
right,
the Vinyl,
right.
a couple really awesome spots like the, but I mean the thing is you'd end up you get like $300 or $400 saved up. You'd buy as many tickets as you can, and you tell people,
Right,
hey,
right,
go ahead and buy these tickets.
right,
We're going to be playing
right.
at 9 o'clock.
The other thing too, like getting back to what you were saying about or talking about with the menu venues earlier too, and just how to get started with original music. Another thing that I used to do when I was living in Florida and playing in saltwater grass was um, we would play restaurants and stuff like that throughout the month. Maybe do like 4 gigs or so a month where people didn't have to come pay to see us. But while we were there, we would promote our shows that we would build with other bands.
Yeah.
And so we kind of trickled that into some of the other venues we play. Like they built a Mellow Mushroom at the beach, which kind of turned into like a nightclub after 10 o'clock.
Nice.
And so instead of playing the full 10 to 2, we'd have an opening band come and play from 10 to 11:30 or whatever. And then we played midnight to 2, one long set.
Yeah.
And that was a kind of a good way to bring people in, get them to stick around. Those types of gigs will pay for your out of town shows too. So if you're trying to tour, like the way that we're going to attack our thing is we're going to record stuff and get it sounding as best as we possibly can.
Yeah.
Pay the majority of the money to promote the crap out of it. And we're not going to go out on the road too soon. I think that's what a lot of bands do.
Yeah.
Is they're like, all right, we want to go on tour. We want to go on tour. We want to go on tour. You want to go on tour? Okay, here's what you do.
Yeah.
Go drive around to a bunch of different gas stations for a week, and you tell me how enjoyable it is. There's
Yeah.
a certain like allure and like romanticized thing about being on the road. It's so cool. It's not. It
It's not.
sucks.
It sucks, and it's like, and especially if it's not amounting to anything.
Yeah, it's
'Cause, I
even
mean,
worse.
And I mean, like kind of old like mentality that it's like you go, you sell your CDs. It's like, hey, we're selling our CDs for $5. You sell like 20 CDs
Yeah.
in a night. All right, cool.
Right.
You got that money for gas and food, and the food would be the roller food from the gas station,
Yep.
and then it'd be enough to get to the next place. And there's a new way to approach it now, even too with all the internet apps and stuff. Like my goal was, get the music out there first, get it recorded,
Yeah.
and not promote it as like, hey, we got something coming out. We got like I want to have something ready to give to people.
Yeah, yeah.
Promote it
Mhm.
and do that, and then once it, between
Be
doing
smart about it.
you just gotta be clever.
And it's really hard to do nowadays because you see so many people like you get that FOMO or you get that self-consciousness about you see other people doing what you want to do and you're like, well, why am I not doing it the same way?
Yeah.
Well, you're different people, so that's for one.
We're gonna have a different audience that's gonna respond in a different. Yeah, it's all the fingerprint kind of. There's generalizations, sure, but I mean, like, biggest thing right now is get the product, which is the music,
Yeah.
done. Get that like ready to go out and like be listened to and enjoyed,
Right.
and then make a couple videos, and that's what this 2024 for me personally is like. I'm going to try to do a lot more videos where it's just like you can see what I can do if you like it. Hey, at the end of the video, here's a little blurb, or like,
Right.
find little ways, copy what's successful, and make it to where you can see me. You can, do. I'd love to do some stuff like where it's you and me just doing like a live stream jam.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
especially now that we got we're gonna play. I need you to fill in for a cover show
Yeah,
and
man.
stuff.
I'm stoked.
Like it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do is when I get that set list done this week, I'm going to send that to you, and then love to have that put up. Do some stuff where it's like, hey guys, here's us playing this. Little 2-piece jam.
Yeah, that'd be
If we
great.
can get either some just do some stuff to where it's just not, hey, come look at us, come see our show, come see show.
Right.
Like show, hey, here's not our original stuff. That's the behind the paywall, which is the ticket.
Right.
Do that to where it builds up to where it's like, oh, I know these guys are good.
Yeah.
I see them at the cover shows. They're dope.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what I'm trying to use the menu venues is where it's like, oh my god, you guys are so good. Do you guys play anywhere else?
And so that like playing those types of venues, there was another band in Jacksonville when I was there that did it this way too, where they were called Chroma. That was their main band name.
Chroma.
And they were like a southern rock fusion kind of band. They're really, really good. But the same guys, it was a trio, guitar, bass, and drums, and those same guys would play venues, and they would call themselves something different. They called themselves Bread and Butter. So when you're going to see Bread and Butter, you're going to see the cover band. When you're going to see Chroma, you're seeing the same guys, but you're not seeing the same show.
Yeah.
And so they would build that at places like Freebird, which was a real place. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was owned by Leonard Skinner's family.
Oh, nice.
And it was a venue. It was a great venue in Jack's Beach. I played there numerous times, and they turned it into a surfer bar. But you would play. We would play at Saltwater Grass. We would play at different venues in town, and that was the problem that we got into, is because we were trying to make money. I needed to make money with it because I was a full-time musician.
Yeah.
All the other guys did other things for money, and so that's another mode to think about as well. If you're not always working in music, that doesn't make you a failure. That's my own personal insecurity. Was I always wanted to work in music, because if I didn't, that means I wasn't a musician.
Yeah.
And I tied so much of my self-worth to that. But at the same time too, another good way of doing that is to work a real job, or even a shit job. Work at the gas station or whatever, and then use that money to fund your music.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of what I do with all my sales jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
I always kept telling myself I was in my little
Yeah.
cubicle with my collared shirt on and stuff, and just making these cold calls and trying to sell and push these products. It's like, this job is not your identity.
No, it's not.
It is just something that is going to fund what you really want to do. And I've gotten to the point now, it's like, where I've made some investments to where it's like, I'm not making a shit ton of money off of like just all that stuff. I'm making enough to where I feel comfortable, to where I can step out,
Right.
and actually just, all right, now it's I have my destiny in my hands.
Yeah.
If I'm going to do these things, I got to be smart with it. And I mean, I've even considered like doing like some kind of like part-time something just to make just, hey.
I mean, I haven't done it in a while, but I would deliver for Uber Eats.
Yeah.
Things like that, where it's like it's no skill required, no time that you have to spend. I mean, other than doing the job, obviously.
Yeah.
But like, you don't have to get any kind of certification. You have to go to school. There's no thought put into it whatsoever.
Yeah.
You need an extra $50. Go deliver a few cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
Like it's things like that where it's like, think outside the box of your income level. And it's like, do you want to be a musician, or do you want to be an artist? It's really hard to do both.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's really hard to be just an artist or to be just a musician. There's lots of I would say there's more musicians that cross over into being an artist than there are the opposite way.
Yeah.
Because as a musician, for me, as a drummer, right, like I could write music with you, which we're doing, and then I can also play cover gigs with you, and I can play cover gigs with somebody else, and I can teach, right? So I'm a musician that's trying to bust more into the artist side of things.
Yeah.
But because my main source of income is in music, it's really hard to I can't take the original gig because I got to play a wedding, because I got to support my family.
Yeah, because the
music.
wedding is going to actually make enough for groceries. The original
Exactly.
gig is going to make enough for half a gas tank.
Right, and for my own ego of being an artist, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, again, it goes back to, what do you really want out of your career,
Well, and I mean, looking back in some of my old projects and some of the stuff, my buddy Joseph, who was the drummer in Chalmers Bay, no phone, no bank account, no shoes.
Yeah.
The shoes were by choice.
Right.
But I mean, he was just like, dude, why don't we all just like all get like a job at like one place, rent out of like a room, like, do all the, kind of like that you were talking about, the romanticized thing.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, I was like, or Joseph, what if we all get a job at like an entry level, like, company.
Yeah.
Make, at the time I got mine, it was like, we all go work. I started at a Sprint store.
Right.
And then I moved into a distribution sales company. And it's like, why don't we all do something like that, where we're all making the trade-off is time for money.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, instead of doing a part-time job, which, I mean, hell, if we all did, Kroger, worked at Walmart,
Right.
Amazon, something like that, and we all, covered that to where we all could pay the rent, and then the weekends. And it, like,
That's another point too. That's another good point, because when I was younger, I made conscious decisions to work in music instead of getting another job, because as you're doing those types of jobs, you also work on your artistry.
yeah.
So being a hired gun, or whatever you want to call it, being a musician, not necessarily an artist, that's the time where you practice stuff to be an artist. So it's, if I'm gonna go work at Kroger for 8 hours a day, That's 8 hours that I'm not putting into the instrument.
Yeah.
So if you do stuff like that, you got to really, really be dedicated to it.
Well, and the thing that was the trade off was is like you can do it like that.
Yeah.
But then it's here's like the cycle that I found myself in is you work 40 hours a week, and then I'd do the show on like Saturday, Friday, or something like that, and then Sunday was just do and when I do all the chores and
Yeah.
stuff, and then
Spend
okay.
time for yourself.
Yeah, and it's like, well, don't I deserve? It's like time to go to like cut loose at a bar. It's like, no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Like now that I'm more mature, I was like, dude, quit smoking all the weed.
Yeah.
Quit going out and drinking.
Right.
Quit doing like it's like sacrifice now so you can go like really hang out later. And
Yeah.
that's something that I don't blame anybody besides myself for the choices I made. It sucks that you have people that want to go do stuff like that. It's like, dude, let's just once you get off work, let's all meet up at the place. Let's smoke a bunch of weed and try to write a song.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just end up smoking a lot of weed.
Yeah.
And just jamming, and you don't write anything down, and this, that, or the other.
Right.
But I mean, it's the way, like something with this New Year's Eve gig.
Yeah.
Some of the people that are close to the band, they were saying, "Oh man, we don't get to go hang out with our friends and family at like a New Year's party." Now, once we saw the venue and the place that we were staying at, they didn't give a fuck.
Right.
Because they're like, this is awesome.
And that, sacrifices are a big thing too.
Well, I mean, especially you and your wife, like you understand. She understands. I mean, God bless your wife. I love her to death. She's an amazing woman.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, yeah, like the weekends are going to be taken up.
Mm-hmm.
The holidays, big event days,
Mm-hmm.
the people want to have a band for. I'm the band.
Yep.
So it's like, yeah, you kind of have to find your own little schedule around that. Make your own little holiday celebrations and stuff. It's like, hey, I'm playing. It's a compromise and a big trade off. But I mean, that's the thing. Like, really having to kind of make sure everyone's on the same page with, yeah, no, we're not going to go to the tailgate.
Right.
We're going to go play somewhere. Or, hey, we don't have a gig this Friday. We're all going to lock ourselves in and just like rehearse all night.
Yeah. And trying to explain to somebody that you need to spend time away from them, even just practicing. You know what I'm saying? Like trying to explain to somebody that, no, I can't spend time with you or a daughter right now because I have to go practice. It's very difficult to do.
Yeah.
But it's the time, for me anyway, it's the time where I can actually just 100% be alone. Except for being in the bathroom.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes with a child, it's like, hey, what are you doing here, Dad?
Even then, even then, no, it's, because I get the,
Daddy?
yeah. So
and you're just like, you don't want to come in here.
Yeah, no. And then she gets me back though, because. Anyway, but like try, but it's like, no, I can't hang out with you because I have to practice. Well, that's not a good enough. You're not playing anywhere. You're not making any money, right? So it's like, why should you need that time? And it's because I need to work on stuff. Like it just doesn't just happen.
Yeah, the chops only stay if I keep chopping.
Yeah, exactly. So it's and as you grow, get married, have kids, have more responsibilities, it's a lot more difficult to find the time to do that.
Yeah.
And so even now, if I wasn't a pro, if I wasn't playing and teaching music every day, when my daughter was born, I probably would have quit, just because I just didn't have time to do anything else. I could. She was. I mean, when babies are first born, they're only awake for an hour or two at a time. They sleep so much. They sleep for like 18 hours a day. So if you play guitar, bass, piano, you can turn the volume down.
Headphones or something. But even then,
that's doable. But then at that point too, you have to be coherent enough. And infants, especially, do not give a fuck about the 24-hour cycle. They don't care. They'll wake up at 3 a.m, up, ready to go.
Yep.
Hey, what's going on? What do you got for me? Well, I've been up for 10 hours. I don't care.
It's like I want to yank on your beard. I want to cry. I want to just throw.
I care not about these things. What I care about is the poop in my diaper and where I'm getting my milk, and that's all I care about. And you're gonna deal with it right now.
Yeah.
And then 2 hours later, the same thing happens. And then you got to get up in the morning to go to work all day. And it's like, well, you just got 4 hours of sleep intermittently anyway, right? So it's like, well, the last thing on your mind is your own art, your own artistry.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, that's the thing, just speaking from my own band experiences, we tried one way, young, dumb, and just play a bunch of places, go do a bunch of hanging out and getting high, getting drunk, and just playing music because it was fun. It felt good, and
Yeah.
it was, like it served that artist ego kind of thing where it's like we're in the ether of the artistry,
Right.
We're doing what we thought was what we needed to do because that's what we were told or portrayed by other artists.
Mm-hmm.
And then towards the end of some college, people are like, hey man, I have this girl. I have these obligations to like go do this second, my post grads,
Yeah.
there's things like that that are going to come to a head, and hindsight being 2020 and all that crap. It's if we had, if and I like I said, I put it all on myself. If I had taken the time to say, you know what, I could spend these 4 or 5 hours hanging out at the bar late at night, not even playing at the bar, just going out and shooting the shit, having fun.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could stay in, and that's what you kind of hear when you dig deeper into people that are really the artists and musicians that are really successful. They said no to that.
Yep.
They said, yeah, no, I want to go to this frat party or this this kegger, but oh man, if I could just figure out how Eddie Van Halen does that thing on the guitar,
Yeah.
and or it's like, man, I just want to play this blues album over and over on repeat and listen to it and try to pick it apart, like making those things the same way like the athletes. I'm not going to go out and do those things. I'm going to go train. I'm going to go do these things so I can get just that little bit better.
And burnout is a real thing too. So you have to kind of take the ebb and the flow. And not get so much into it, but it really, these days it needs to be 80-20. 80% working, 20% going out and having fun.
Yeah.
Especially with music. And especially now that there are so many people that can do the same thing. The amount of time you put into it is invaluable because that's what it takes time.
There's no getting around it. It takes time.
And there's no cheat code for being a great player. There's no fast track for any of that. You can get into a fast track with mental things. Some people are just wired better for math or whatever.
Yeah.
But and some people are wired for drums. I mean, Buddy Rich never practiced a day in his life.
He just I got this.
He was a professional from the time he was 18 months old.
God bless.
Till the day he died.
I mean, but yeah, that's the thing about it. But I mean, like, kind of moving like on it in the new realm that I'm in, that I'm still learning all the bits and pieces about like just personal scheduling and stuff. I'm grateful for gone through what I've gone through with the other bands and people that have been a blessing in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And now with this, working with you and all the other people, I could kind of like meet you at where you are. It's like, hey, yeah, we're going to meet tomorrow. We're going to do this. We're going to go through this. We're going to make a plan.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to just kind of keep driving forward because we know in about, 6 to 8 months from now, we're going to have, a lot of music that's going to be hopefully ready to get out there, and then start playing more places, finding other ways to make money, like doing like those things that we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And then before we know it, we're out there and we're like, hey, I'm FaceTiming you from, Denver because we're playing at this, the Red Rock.
Right.
It's just, but like all the little steps now that I'm so glad that, we're out of the holiday season. It's regular business hours.
Yeah.
Things are going to move forward. And it's like, as long as like I said, for me, myself and I, as long as I, keep my head on straight, don't have any distractions.
Yeah.
And like you said, I agree with you. There is some don't get burnt out.
Yeah.
But doing everything calculated and
calculated.
Yeah.
That's yes.
With a like calculated balance of like, hey, been playing music all day. Let me go shoot some pool with my friends. Let me go bowling. Let me just do something that's not like gonna, the one thing now is definitely like not going and just drinking and having like, and then waking up at like 1 o'clock and kind of redeeming the times.
Yeah, you waste a lot of time that way.
Especially now, it's like everyone's like warned me. It's like, yeah, you're drinking like that at 22, 23. When do you start getting a little bit older, you're gonna feel it. There's a flip where you're just like, yeah, I had 17 like beers last night.
Oh, dude, it was the day after my 30th birthday.
Oh,
the
Jesus.
day after, like it was that much harder to get up out of bed that day.
Yeah.
The day after.
Yeah, man.
And there was no like grace period. I
just
turned 30 on June 30th, July 1st. It was done.
fuck.
So like I hit that wall, and I understand exactly what that's like. You know.
So, but I mean, dude, it's just that's the thing, and I mean, really just kind of finding that road that we're going on right now. The biggest thing.
The other thing is too is like being an artist. You have to experience life. You can't, because like, what are you gonna art about if you don't have a life? If you're always stuck in the practice room or in the studio or whatever, you don't have a life. It's like there is that part of it where it's like, yeah, you do have to sacrifice. I've made tons of sacrifices to do what I'm doing, but at the same time, I've lived a lot of life.
Yeah, I mean, I don't imagine there'd be a person that's never had that they found the no one no, they never had a heartbreak, they never had a bad business deal, they never had someone betray them. It's like, what kind of bullshit are you going to
Yeah,
write?
right.
And
Yeah.
like you're just going to write those obnoxiously happy songs.
What do you have to offer anybody?
Yeah.
You know, what do you have to offer the psyche or whatever?
What you know what? I say that, and then I'm thinking that would be kind of cool to hear someone that's like, no, I've had such a great life. I've done things such a certain way that everything's worked out. That all have to write is these joyous songs
Yeah.
of like lavish like praise and like just gratefulness for the life I have. And I mean,
Right.
I'm sure people could resonate with that, but everyone loves a good sad
Oh
song.
yeah, man. I mean, you know, you got a buddy of mine in college, great bass player, friend of mine. He would say, you know, sometimes you just got to go out and shed life, because that was what we're all in the music building at that time. It was open 24 hours. It's not open 24 hours anymore. But you know, we'd be in there all day, all night, and just you start going bouncing off the walls. You know, it's like, get out, go live life for a bit, and then come back to it.
Go do something silly, and then talk about how it. And I mean,
one of my favorite things to do was to, and still is sometimes, if I have the time to do it, which I really don't anymore, is take like a month or a few weeks worth of time, practice or write or art for 3 or 4 hours a day, and don't do anything else. Just do that and play your gigs, work your job if you have one, whatever, and then take the same amount of time off. Forcibly remove yourself from your instrument, and when you come back to it, your hands will be a lot slower, but your ideas will be a lot freer.
I've had that feeling before.
Yeah,
like kind of like I remember.
But see, that's calculated.
It's calculated,
right? That's I'm thinking about this.
Yeah, that's more intentional versus mine was just happenstance to be like, oh, I was doing, this. We had a big project at work, so I really couldn't devote this time to it. So, but then once we finished, we got the sales done, we got all the shit out of the way. I was like, ooh, I need to go sit down and play.
Yeah,
it's like, ooh, I haven't done this before. Like,
sometimes it takes a minute to kind of get into it. You know, you got to kind of push through some blocks, and then the trade-off is being able to express yourself the way that you really want to. You know, and having the tools available to be able to call upon them when you want to. And like, what we were saying before, between the difference between art and bullshit is a very fine line. There's a very fine line sometimes.
I think the fine line of intention.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's knowing what you're doing as opposed to not knowing what you're doing at all.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good point. Like you said, build up the tools through practice, rehearsal, and things like that, so you know what you can do.
Yep.
And then when you take the time off to let your life happen, you can have that. Oh, remember that lick I did here or there? That really makes me think of that. One of the best parts about the bar gigs and the menu venues is like when you do talk to some people that were there because they were having a bad time, you can kind of cherry pick some of those,
yeah, and I don't think either of us are trying to say that one way is better than another or one way is the right way. Still don't know how to.
I think the right way is to try always.
Yeah, and see what works for you the best. And,
yeah,
and if you play bar gig, I play bar gigs all the time. I'm excited as hell about the bar gig I'm playing with you coming up. So like it's not to put anything down. I'm not trying to say anything's better than another, but you're talking about intention, living calculated. Or taking calculated risks, right? Or calculated movements.
Yeah.
And that's all part of it. You gotta, do I really want to play bars, or do I really want to play venues? There's not one that's better than another. It's different. You might think that playing at a venue in front of 5,000 people is like the pinnacle of success, but then what happens when you don't have that gig anymore?
Yeah.
Like I've been fired from plenty of situations where I put myself into that so much and had so much of my own self-worth invested in somebody else, and then that just goes away, and it's like, well, all right, so you no longer have that gig or that ability. Does that make you any less of a musician?
Fair point.
It's you. It's not what's going on around you. It's what do you do? How are you valuable?
Yeah.
And I asked myself, that's a very hard question to ask yourself, and I did a few years ago, and I didn't like the answer that came up, and And that's when I really decided to play for myself and have my own self-worth come from me, from in here, because I like to get my self-worth from worldly things, outwardly things,
Yeah.
you know. And so coming back centered in terms of what I think is good or what I think sounds good for me, you know. That was it's a very hard thing to do because, you want to make the right decision.
Yeah.
So, all that to be said that, not putting any wave playing down, I play all different kinds of gigs. I played at Carnegie Hall. So, like, and I'm still out there slinging it, So it's
Oh
like
yeah.
you never really quite make it. You never really quite get there. You get a little closer each time you do it. Um, but I don't. I mean, for me anyway, there will never be a situation in music anyway where I'm like, all right, that's it.
I
I'm
did
done.
it. I got it all done. It's like, no, man. Yeah.
I just know I know me, and like the minute that I say that, it's gonna be like, no, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on.
Yeah. I mean, dude, that's a good way to put it. I just, you got to do all those things and just make sure uh, whatever happens is intentional, it's calculated, and
Yeah.
there's just plenty of life left to live and like write about. So
And if you don't know what you're doing either, like that, I don't know what I'm doing. I every week I've got a whole new plan that I'm talking to Melissa about, and she's like, "Okay, what now? Like, what are you doing now? That's so different, So
We gotta probably wrap this up here in
Yes.
a second, but for like a closing thought, like when you said there's never a moment for you to stop, was there a moment that you knew you were ready? Like you had a certain mastery over what you wanted to play? That was like, now I can pull trigger on it?
what do you mean?
Basically, was there almost what level of skill did you need to get to till then you were ready to compose yourself?
Oh, that's a
Like,
good question. That's a good question.
and maybe how that can be for other people too. What
Yeah.
separates the fakes and who's just the garage band trying to just do anything?
So I think intent, like we were talking about before, I think intent is has a lot to do with that. I think for me too, it was just I didn't really. It wasn't like I was like, all right, if I learn the G major scale, then I can write music. It wasn't anything like that. It was more about like being okay with what I have to offer and not being afraid. Like a lot of my decisions are rooted in fear, right?
Mhm.
So it was more about like being able to get over that fear of not being good at it. And because I played drums for so long, and for me, my benchmark for being a player, for being a drummer, was when I was in high school. I went and sat in at a jazz gig when I was like 14 years old, and I did well enough for people to want to hire me. And at that point, I was like, and my dad agreed with me too. My dad plays drums, and he was like, at that point, you could probably be a pro. So and I'd been practicing a lot, of jazz, and it was more of an internal thing. It was like, all right, I feel confident enough in my ability, my basic ability. I'm gonna go find the best players that I can and be the worst player in the band.
Mhm.
You know, um, in terms of composing, I think it really helps to know the basics about music in terms of like how it works,
Mhm.
because you can get to the same place if you don't know what you're doing, but it's going to take a lot longer to get there. You know what I mean? A quote from Ed Shaughnessy, who was the drummer for the Tonight Show band for many years. He said, you'll finding a teacher is invaluable because you'll eventually get to where you want to go on your own, but you'll get there much faster with a teacher. Because a teacher can sit there and, like, for me, I've been teaching so long and beginners for so long, or anybody like you, when you were playing your thing, I watched you play for 2 seconds, and I was able to diagnose that problem that you
Yeah.
had. And that's just because I've done it a lot, and as a teacher, I know what I'm doing to get the kind of sound that I want to get. And so, composing wise, I think a lot of it has to do with un- understanding basics about music. Um, it helps. There's lots of musicians out there and great artists like Bob Dylan, I'm sure didn't have any idea about what a secondary dominant is. So like, and he's, widely regarded as being one of the greatest songwriters ever. So at a certain point, I think it's more just about, it's either stupidity or arrogance. It's like like you don't know you're not good enough, so you do it anyway, or you think you're good enough, so you do it anyway, right?
Okay.
So like in terms of BS or art, it's a very fine line, and it's up to the individual. And for me personally, the difference between both of those things is the intent. It's not even necessarily the talent of the person creating it, right? Because like you look at someone like Taylor Swift, talented, whether or not we appreciate her art or not, right? You can't deny that she's a talented performer and singer.
She's a sellout. She sells out every stadium she goes to.
100%. And she writes great songs that resonate with people,
Yeah.
you know? But she's not doing anything super complicated. All of her shit's basic harmony, basic chord progression.
Yeah.
You know, it's not anything that is like super complicated. Could she if she plays a little bit of guitar? She's probably not as good a guitar player as you are
I'd hope.
from a technical standpoint.
If she shreds, I'm giving up.
Exactly, right? But you know,
don't do it to me, T.
it's to me like where you know that you're good enough to do what you do is like, you know, not getting laughed off stage or not being yelled at by not and I'm talking like yelled at, and because that's happened to me before too, where you feel like you just want to break down and cry, and the fact that you're too embarrassed either way to do that, you know? And so like when you can start taking rejection, when you can start taking people's negative opinions about you and not let it affect you, that's another good indication that you're on the right track too. There's lots of different things, and listen to yourself. Listen to your voice in the back of your head about whether or not you think you're good enough, and the answer is probably always going to be no. For me, it is, and so you gotta tell that voice to shut up every once in a while, and just do it, and just see what happens. Like writing songs with you, you know, you just do it, and 9 times out of 10, what you come up with is complete crap, and that's just how it is. Being the you know, look at any major artist, you know, Michelangelo or whoever. You know, there's tons of drafts of those same pictures, right? For a lot of people, someone like Mozart wrote the entire thing. Like you look at Mozart's manuscript paper, and it's perfect. There are no notes scratched out. Everything is exactly right. You look at Beethoven's manuscript paper, and it looks like a friggin' blind person wrote on it.
It's like, no, we're not going to do the B natural here. We're going to do this.
Yeah, there's so many revisions in Beethoven's music. He was deaf, obviously, probably has something to do with it. But like, compare them together. You know, they're both amazing composers for their time period. Amazing at their instrument. They each played piano, but the way that they did it is totally different. So it's like, at a certain point, you got to be either stupid enough or brave enough. And I think for me, I'm probably more on the stupid side. But you know, it's a personal thing. You just get in there, know how to do what you're doing. You know enough about what you're doing to be able to communicate with other people that also do it. And that would kind of be my starting point anyway for what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the big step out there was just kind of realizing, I think, all right, I think I've made enough mistakes so I know what not to do,
Mm-hmm.
and I know I'm going to make some more.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I have enough maturity. Like that was my thing. I was just so immature, so undisciplined with like all the like playing the music was not the hard part. It was the learning new stuff, trying to get out there and controlling all the distractions.
Yeah.
For me, it was just the drinking and like doing like just smoking and drinking and smoking and drinking and then drinking and smoking.
Yep.
And then doing a little bit of shrooms to think because I'll fix everything. And
Yeah.
then realizing no matter how many drugs you take, it's not going to change the baseline of what
It comes
you
from
are.
here.
Yeah.
It doesn't come from that.
Yeah.
That stuff will let you down. And I'm not just talking about drugs and alcohol. I'm talking about outward, the world.
Yeah.
The world will let you down. You know, you're less likely to let yourself down if you're really true about what you want and what you're doing. And it takes a long time. I'm 35 years old. I still really don't know what I want to do.
Yeah, I mean that's like when I was able to start actually like keeping promises to myself. When I was like, hey, we're gonna get up, we're gonna do 100 push-ups.
Yep.
It's like we're gonna
Start small. Exactly. That's it right there. Start. You know,
little wins.
For me, writing music, I have such a block about it because it doesn't to me, I guess it feels like all these great songs that I hear that these artists just wrote them.
It just
came out of them.
We're just going to do this the first take. Yeah, there's no like they didn't have like a couple rough drafts.
And there are some people that are like that, like Elton John. In particular, when Bernie Taupin would write the lyrics, Elton would go into a separate room, and he would write these songs in 15 minutes, like Tiny Dancer. That song was written in 15, 20 minutes. So that does happen. That does happen.
Yeah.
But by and large, most people that write great music sit in the room with their piano or their guitar for hours, and they churn out crappy idea after crappy idea after crappy idea until they finally find something, one little thing that works.
That's that nugget of gold that they need.
And then you take that, and then you go, and you go, and you go, and you go, and then all right, well, I gotta start all over again. And that's the hard part, So you gotta be dumb enough to just keep doing it.
Yeah, I like that. Like you said earlier, it's like arrogant enough to think you're good enough to try, and then
dumb enough to not realize you're bad at it, but arrogant enough to want to try anyway.
Exactly. Well, hell yeah, man. One more time, the website
NicoLembomusic.com.
Guys, give it a look, check it out, please, and keep it. We're gonna keep writing, keeping some stuff going on. We got a lot of music, so definitely give us a like, follow, subscribe to the page, so we can get more people interested in what we're doing, and then we hope have you back again soon, my brother.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, love it, man. Love you. We'll see you guys soon. Y'all stay strange out there, all right? Woohoo.
Yeah.
Ciao.